People reuniting with friends here, not expecting anything like this. Let me just set the scene for you right now. We are in the parking lot outside of the venue. Sirkin, our cameraman, is going to show you. People are kind of in a traffic jam right now. This was a one-way in, one-way out kind of road situation. This is Butler County. It's a pretty rural county. Not a lot of big highways, not a lot of big roads. So people have been, I mean, this is now hours later, and many people still waiting to get out and still waiting and processing everything that they've experienced. I want to introduce you to Tracy, who is stuck in this traffic jam right now. Tracy and Tyler, they're high school friends. They were right there. And Tracy, we've been hearing some of these stories. Can you just walk us through what you saw?
Absolutely. President Trump was up there, and then within 5 minutes, we're hearing pop, 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 pop. And then everybody's on the ground. Everybody's on the floor. And it was just like, what? And we were on the ground level. We were 4 rows back from the stage. And are you coming?
We'll just follow along with you. They're moving in the car here, so we'll just
from the stage. And the people in the bleachers behind us, somebody got popped. Somebody got killed. Somebody died. Somebody got shot. Like this close to where we were. Those bullets, I pray to God for these people's families. Oh my God. But how is this happening in our country today? And why? Why is it happening? Why?
And Tracy, you were telling me earlier, you and Tyler, you know this county, you know this area. Did you ever think something like this would happen here?
Never. Absolutely never. This shows you how much hate and hostility is in our world today. This is not a good thing. We need to all come together as a human race, We need to help each other out.
Can you describe this area, this county, this place that you and Tyler grew up?
Tyler?
Rural.
Rural. Cows, chickens. This is farmland. This is farmland here.
Butler, it's the county seat, but most of the county's probably farmland. So it's people are pretty easygoing.
And Tracy, we talked about, often Trump rallies, people are coming to celebrate, to see the former president. They're coming in with a pretty excited attitude. Can you walk me through what you came in with and what you're coming out with?
I came in with hope and excitement. If you have you ever been to a Trump rally?
Oh, we cover them all the time.
Well, how does it make you feel?
How does it make you feel? How were you feeling?
It makes me feel absolutely great and wonderful. In my heart, I feel that this man really wants to help our country because I really feel that. I honest to God, I do, because this country for so long seems to be going down a path that it really shouldn't be doing.
So, you came in to hear the former president speak, someone you're a fan of, and what is your state of mind now?
Not good. There's too much hate. This is too much. We can't do this as a country. We can't do this. We need to come together as a country, and God willing, we will. I don't know if you're allowed to put that stuff on, but listen, man, my kid is a 4th-year seminarian, and he prays for this country every day. My child.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Lester, they've got a ways to go still. There's a lot of cars piling up here. There are a few different places that people are trying to exit at this point. A bit of a free-for-all, but people have been kind and generous to one another. People letting cars in that are trying to come in. And again, just reeling from what they witnessed. Some people very much firsthand, very much very, very close to the tragedy that we're describing from sort of the law enforcement point of view, the high level point of view. But at the end of the day, Lester, the people who were here on the ground, particularly those who were close to that violence, it's something they are never going to forget, and it's now associated, of course, with politics, with the state of our democracy for so many of the people that we've been talking to, Lester.
All right, Dasha, thanks. We'll continue to go to you as you get those riveting accounts from folks. NBC News campaign embed joining us on the phone now. She is in Butler, Pennsylvania, near the hospital where there is heavy law enforcement presence. NBC News has not confirmed that the former president is at that hospital, but it's 15 minutes away from where the rally took place. Jillian Frankel is there. What are you seeing?
Lester, that's right. I'm across the street from Butler Memorial Hospital. And as you mentioned, we do not yet have confirmation that this is where former President Donald Trump was taken. But there's a heavy law enforcement presence here. Media was across the street. We're shortly getting moved. The hospital is set up on a hillside, and there's law enforcement at the top of the hill looking down. There's also law enforcement at the top of the roof of the hospital itself. When I arrived, there was a helicopter circling the building, heavy police presence here, Lester. When I pulled up, I asked the officer how they were doing. He said they're hanging in there. Obviously, a terrifying scene here in Butler tonight. Lester?
Yeah, so the access road is cut off to this area?
It is. We are not allowed to go up there. The police vehicles have moved, but we're not allowed to go up the hill to the hospital itself. And media was staged across the street. They're actually sending us further away from the hospital itself momentarily. But yeah, it was completely blocked off when I arrived here, and still a heavy police presence.
All right, Jillian, thanks very much. Again, we haven't had correct me if I'm wrong from the control room, but I don't think we've had a complete description of the wound suffered by the former president. We have all seen the blood coming out from near his ear, his right ear. Somebody described as a teardrop of blood, of fresh blood. It appears he might have been grazed by the bullet, but again, we haven't received a complete medical terminology description of the wound, but it does appear that he was certainly hit during all of this. He's largely under his own power, certainly being escorted down to the armored vehicle, but again, seems to be doing okay. In fact, we heard from President Biden a while ago, who said that he appears to be okay. We should note that President Biden says he will be trying to call former President Trump at some point here in the not too distant future. And there, the signal of triumph from former President Trump as he was put into that armored car and taken to, we believe, quite possibly the hospital we were just showing you a moment ago. Our investigative correspondent Tom Winter is with us. He continues to dig out fresh details. What more can you tell us, Tom?
Lester, a couple of these things coming from official statements from law enforcement, or for 3 to 4 law enforcement officials, to myself and our colleague Jonathan Dienst. We know that the FBI is now on scene and is assisting the United States Secret Service along with the U.S. Attorney's Office in their investigation into this shooting today at the Trump rally. You were just asking a question about whether we know whether or not the former president was shot directly, either grazed in the ear or in the cheek, or whether or not this was a ricochet. That's something that they're still trying to get a handle on, and whether or not a piece of glass was what may have struck him. But either way, he obviously, from the photographs, was struck in some fashion by something. The other information that we were being told, and I'm going to bring in the reporting of my colleague Kelly O'Donnell on this as well, is that the shooting happened outside the Secret Service perimeter. So for folks that have attended any sort of political rally involving either party, involving a presidential candidate or a former president, you'll notice if you go that you are wanded, or you have to go through a magnetometer, kind of like an airport-style security, if you will. That happens within the perimeter of the event. And leading up to the event, the U.S. Secret Service goes through the event site itself to make sure that there's nothing nefarious stored inside, that nobody's hiding out and waiting for a rally to begin. And they try to establish a perimeter that would allow them to be able to have a real control over the event. So what we're being told is that this shooting happened outside of that secure perimeter from a high point. Specifically where it is, I can't yet tell you. We're waiting to hear about about that, but that's some of the information that we're waiting to get on. As far as what you're looking at on screen at the moments that this happened, this is standard protocol. You're looking at the heavy weapons teams that immediately went up on stage. Then you're looking at the Secret Service close protective detail of former President Trump, and this would be very similar at any event involving a former president, that they immediately surround him. Obviously, the Secret Service agents there are putting their lives into their hands if this individual was going to continue to fire. Speaking of the individual that law enforcement believes is deceased, that individual, the alleged shooter rather, is deceased, as I mentioned. That individual may have been shot by law enforcement. That appears to be coming into clarity at this time. We're still waiting on the specific details of that, whether or not that was a counter sniper team or somebody who was close to him. I suspect we'll get more details on that closely. As far as who did this and what their motivations are, there's some background information coming into view, Lester, but as you can imagine, there are a lot of names on social media at this hour. There are a lot of names that have been mentioned to us, and we're really trying to get a lot more clarity on that before we suggest a possible name of the individual who did this. But at this point, there appears to be no ongoing threat, and there's no indication that they're looking for anybody else. But this is now a full-blown federal criminal investigation, as you can imagine, and they will certainly try to determine whether this individual had any help. Not that we've received any indication of that, but that's obviously something that they will look into. And the type of rifle that could be used, as you would imagine, to fire from outside the perimeter to get close to that stage would be some sort of a high-powered rifle. The specific nature of that is, again, details that we're still waiting to get, Lester.
All right, Tom, thanks very much. Let me go to Kristen Welker now in our Washington, D.C. bureau, who has more. Kristen?
Well, Lester, just to reset for everyone, we are tracking the ongoing investigation that Tom was just talking about in the wake of former President Trump having been rushed off the stage after shots were fired at the Pennsylvania rally where he was speaking. To set the scene for everyone, the day started with the anticipation, the questions swirling about whether this might be the event where he announced his nominee for vice president. Obviously now the mood, the tone, the focus has shifted to this horrific act of political violence that unfolded at this Pennsylvania rally. President Biden did address the nation just a short time ago, saying this is unheard of. Everybody must condemn it. He said he had tried to speak with the former president, had not been able to, but is continuing those attempts. He's also getting briefed. I want to go to our senior White House correspondent, Kelly O'Donnell, who is following all of this along with us. Kelly, what's the latest there?
Well, from the Biden White House perspective, this is a moment for trying to get information to the president. He, of course, is in charge of the Department of Justice and the Secret Service that are, of course, the agencies that will be working on this. There is always a careful separation between the executive and the law enforcement capabilities. But that's why the Biden White House has a critical role to play to provide the resources at the federal level to investigate this. The president indicated that he also recognizes that state and local officials are very much involved at this right now. Part of what will be a question going forward is what is the immediate change, if any, to the political calendar that is scheduled for this week, with the Republican National Convention expected to be in Milwaukee with lots of important events. Obviously, a full assessment of what is the condition of the former president right now. We don't have confirmed reporting yet about the state of that. When he left this event site, as the video indicates, of course, he was taken and has the resources around him for medical care. President Biden has said he wishes to speak to Donald Trump tonight. That can happen whenever the two are able to connect. That is not necessarily a vital piece in terms of next steps, but it is the kind of gesture and important connection that actually does send a message right now that this is not about the politics of the moment and that there are bigger issues here, with the current president and several former presidents talking about no room for political violence. We're hearing that from many elected officials on Capitol Hill as well. And right now, we're in a period of a few different streams of information. What is the investigation producing? What is known about the shooter involved? The extent to which this was some kind of an organized attempt? Were there others involved? All of those questions need to be sorted out. Then there's the political fallout. There is typically a quieting period after an unexpected event. Normally in campaigns, that would be something far less graphic than this. It might be the death of a loved one in a campaign. It might be a car accident. We've seen all those iterations before, and there's typically a quieting period where both campaigns turn down the volume. Everyone catches their breath before the rigor of a campaign resumes again. So this is a critical evening to gather facts, to get a sense of the scope of this, for direct communication between President Biden as a person and former President Donald Trump as a person, and not so much as candidates or in their office and former office. That's part of what's playing out here. Now, the president indicated he would speak again or communicate again if there were further developments, and there are questions to be identified about what next steps there should be, and are all the resources there. Even a question about where does former President Trump go in the immediate hours ahead. He, of course, was on the road as a candidate in Pennsylvania. What is the immediate plan for his next steps? Presidents and former presidents have not only a lot of security around them, but often their homes have additional security as well. So finding a way to safely transport him, making certain of his medical situation, and then the necessary communication between the White House and the former president. Those are the things we're watching. Kristen?
Kelly O'Donnell at the White House for us. Kelly, thank you. And as you have been speaking, Kelly, we are watching these chilling, horrifying images of the former president rushed off the stage, bloodied, defiant, that traditional fist pump that Donald Trump is known for as he is whisked away to get medical care. Lester Holt is back with us. Lester.
Kristen Welker, thank you. NBC's Dasha Burns is just outside that Trump rally. She was there when the shots rang out, and she is now in a sea of traffic of people still trying to leave that area, many with some pretty horrific stories to tell. Dasha?
Yeah, Lester, that's exactly right. We've been talking to people who are stuck in this traffic jam and are processing what they just witnessed. I want you to hear now from, remind me your name, ma'am?
Vanessa Asher.
Vanessa Asher. Vanessa, you were very close to the former president when this happened. Can you describe to me where you were and what you saw?
We were 6 rows back, right in front of his podium, straight back. And he was talking about his chart on this side. And he was looking directly at his chart. And when he went over to this one, that's when he was grazed here. He was shot. And if he would not have looked at his other chart, it probably would have got him in the head.
So he turned his head just in the nick of time.
Yes, he did. In the nick of time.
And Lester, let me just explain to you, and I want to follow up with you more, Vanessa, but this is what we were talking about earlier. I'll send it back to you, Lester.
I apologize. Things are moving quickly here. We're apparently hearing from the former president himself. Hallie Jackson has it. Hallie?
It is a new post on his online platform, Truth Social, Lester, in which the former president says, and I will read this in full, because obviously this is the first time that we are now hearing from the former president himself since this incident at his rally in Butler. He says, I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all of law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, the former president continues, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed, and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. He goes on to say, it is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. He also adds, nothing is known at this time about the shooter who is now dead. The former president says he was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. You're looking at that online post now. So he is confirming, he says that he was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of his right ear. He says, I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. And he ends this post by saying, "God bless America." So, Lester, some significant questions that are being answered now from the former president here as to what happened, as to how he's doing, as to his state of mind. And again, significant in that he is describing in rather vivid detail the moment when he says that bullet went through his ear. He heard the whizzing sound. You're seeing some of these images now, including some that are being circulated by his allies with the former president, his fist raised in the air. He said he felt the bullet ripping through the skin with a lot of bleeding taking place. What we don't know now is where the former president, is headed next. We understand that he is obviously getting treated at that local medical facility. We know from his son, and I will tell you from other sources that I've spoken with, that he appears to be in good spirits. That is what folks are being told, and that his son, who has spoken with him directly, says. And you see the former president able to, obviously, in these videos, this image we've been showing, able to move, able to pump his fist. But you see the blood that he's talking about there on his right ear as the former president is describing what happened. Important to note here, he is also, of course, extending condolences to the person who was hurt, the person who was believed to be killed there, and thanking law enforcement for their incredibly fast response. And you saw the response, Lester, in one of these remarkable moments as it unfolded. In some quarters, in some places online, there was a live stream of this happening. Obviously, the cameras of every network in the country were on this, given that he is the presumptive Republican nominee, of course, before this happened. And you see the absolute chaos there in Butler that we've been describing from Dasha, from Jillian, from Jake and Bianca and our teams there as the rest of it unfolded there. So again, Lester, the first statement that we are getting from the former president himself, posted as Donald Trump is wont to do, posted on an online platform there on Truth Social as he's looking to get the message out immediately, as quickly as he can, it appears, to the American people, that he appears to be okay, that he's extending his condolences, and specifically what happened, as he says, that bullet hit his ear, Lester.
Yeah, incredible to look at how close that was to hitting a vital area of him. That first description from the former president himself, Hallie Jackson, thanks very much. Our senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joins us. Kelly, you have a new statement from President Biden.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to go to Garrett Hake right now. Garrett?
Lester, in reading that statement from Donald Trump, confirming that, in fact, he was shot in this incident in Butler tonight, I think about the times that I have discussed his safety with members of his campaign over the last year or so, and there has always been tension and awareness in the minds of Donald Trump's campaign staff, even at senior levels, of the risk that he takes every time he goes out. Campaign officials will tell you that he gets an enormous amount of threats, frankly, as many politicians do across the political spectrum, and that the campaign has worked across this very long period of time since he first announced more than a year ago that he would be running for president to balance, in some cases, his desire to hold these kind of mega rallies, these huge outdoor events, with his personal safety. They are very cautious about using what is known in the industry as OTR stops, the idea of him appearing at short notice in certain locations where folks cannot necessarily be screened in the same manner that they are by the Secret Service at events like this. And, you know, any presidential campaign thinks about the candidate's safety. It's a major part of the job. You work with the Secret Service for that reason. But this has been front and center in the minds of campaign staffers going back really since before the launch of this campaign. Obviously, an unusual campaign in the sense that here is someone who has never not had Secret Service protection from the moment he was first sworn in 2017. Through this moment. And I think looking ahead now, and this is something that we're trying to report out, is what, if anything, is going to change about the Republican convention next week? Obviously, the former president was set to arrive there on Monday morning. He was expected to be in Milwaukee across those 4 days. These conventions, as many of our viewers know, are very much high security situations. Downtowns locked down days in advance. Very difficult to go in or out. What will change in the security, and what will change in the messaging of this convention? We've already seen some of Donald Trump's allies, perhaps most notably his son, Eric Trump, making use of that image on your screen right now, the fist pump from Donald Trump in the moments after we now know that he was shot, to say that this is the fighter America needs, in the words of Eric Trump and in the words of many of his allies, who I think, you know, setting aside the moment that we are in right now, and especially knowing from the former president's own lips now, or his own fingertips, I suppose, that he's going to be okay. this image of him as a fighter is so central to his political identity, so central to his campaign's strategy, and something that I'm sure will be incorporated into whatever we see of the convention next week. What changes might be taking place right now, Lester, very difficult to say. The campaign is on a complete lockdown, not talking to the press, really working through first what's going on with their candidate and what their next steps will be tomorrow and in the days ahead.
All right, we're looking at a motorcade leaving a nearby hospital that has been under heavy security here since all this happened. We have not received confirmation that former President Trump has been treated there, but we did just see it looked like a small motorcade leaving the area. So we'll continue to monitor that picture. Garrett, why have you here? Let's talk about what is likely on the minds of a lot of people. I mean, certainly we're looking at a case where there has been a loss of life. Another spectator has been seriously injured. But this comes as the country and Democrats are still wrestling with the issues over the President Biden's performance in the debate. And now this. I guess it'll take some days to play out as to whether we're looking at another reset and changing how people view this campaign.
I think that's right, Lester, and I think it would be a mistake to speculate on exactly what will go forward now. I can only say where it has come to now, and the campaigns that I've covered in the past, the level of intense focus and scrutiny on this presidential election here in early July is very unusual, especially for an election, I think, that a lot of people had kind of tuned out of. Essentially a battle of two incumbents, two people hugely unpopular outside of their own political bases. There was the questions about whether Joe Biden would continue in this race after that debate performance, a historically early debate, and now an intense focus on Donald Trump, on political violence. We know nothing yet about the shooter or his or her motivations. We know nothing yet about exactly why this event took place. But we know the political climate that we're in has been incredibly heated, going back for years. I cover Congress in my other role at this network, and the threat level in Congress has been a huge boost over the last several years by several factors over, more threats against members. So the political environment has changed in that sense, and the heat is turned up to a level that we're just not used to seeing in the summer, which is often the doldrums of a presidential campaign. The Veep stakes speculation is typically the kind of thing that folks in my business are talking about right now. News only for the most dialed in of the political viewers out there. Now all of a sudden we're talking about what appears to be, what is being investigated as, according to our reporting, as an attempt on the life of a nominee or soon-to-be nominee of the presidency of the United States. The phrase that we are in uncharted waters is completely worn out, Lester, but here we find it once again perhaps the most appropriate way to view our political dynamic.
It certainly says it in so many ways. Thank you, Garrett. Let's bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson. You have received a statement from the Secret Service. What are they saying right now?
Yeah, a new statement now putting on the record officially, Lester, what our team has been able to report out from their sources over the course of the last 2 hours or so. I will read it in full here because it's important to note what the Secret Service is saying, that during the rally in Butler tonight at around 6:15 p.m., they say a suspected shooter fired multiple shots toward the stage from an elevated position outside of the rally venue. They say that Secret Service personnel neutralized the shooter, who is now deceased. The Secret Service quickly responded with protective measures, and the former president is safe and being evaluated. The Secret Service spokesperson goes on to say that one spectator was killed, two spectators were critically injured, so badly hurt. The incident is currently under investigation, and the Secret Service has formally notified the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And obviously the FBI and the Secret Service have plenty more work to do here on this front. But Lester, again, significant in that this is the official confirmation that, as we have been reporting here, the suspected shooter here is dead. Two people have been badly hurt. One person was killed here in a moment that is reverberating not just in the political world, but around the country. And I will tell you, around the world, with international reaction coming in from world leaders. I want to also share with you some reaction coming in from the former president's daughter, Ivanka Trump, who is posting now in just the last couple of minutes that she is thanking people for their love and prayers for her father and for other victims of today's senseless violence in Butler, Pennsylvania. She says she's grateful to the Secret Service, to law enforcement officers. She continues to pray for our country, ending by saying, "I love you, Dad," again from Ivanka Trump, today and always, Lester.
All right, Hallie, thank you. For our viewers just joining us as we near the top of the hour, we're on the air with breaking news. We have been for several hours now following the events involving a shooting at Donald Trump's Pennsylvania rally this evening. The former president has been injured. He says he was shot, and he has just posted on Truth Social that he was hit with a bullet that pierced the upper part of his right ear. He says he felt it ripping through his skin. What I want to do here is pause for a moment, and we're going to roll the video of what happened just shortly after 6 p.m. here on the East Coast while Mr. Trump was speaking. Listen closely also to the sound of the gunshots and what's heard of the moments right after that until he is rushed into the car. Here it is.
A little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the spare. Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready. We ready? Down. Down. Are we good? Shooter's down. Shooter's down. Are we good to move? Shooter's down. We're good to move. We're clear. Let's move. Let's move. We're clear. Let me get my shoes. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold on, your head is bloody. So we gotta move to the bus. Let me get my shoes. Okay, my shoes down. Get the shoe. Watch out. Wait.
We wanted you to be able to see that really from start to finish to when he ends up here in the armored vehicle and is taken to, we believe, a nearby medical center. What we know right now, the Secret Service says Donald Trump is safe. NBC is reporting the gunman fired a weapon from a high point, an elevated position outside the perimeter of the rally, so outside the Secret Service security area. The shooter is dead. Also, a spectator who was attending the rally has been killed, 2 others injured. President Biden has been has talked to the nation. He addressed the nation just a short time ago.
I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to him shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this.
And the president saying he plans to call former President Trump. President Trump, we should note, has issued a statement extending his condolences to the loved ones of the rally goer who was killed and another who was injured. He also thanked law enforcement and first responders for their quick action. His campaign says he is fine and is being checked out at a local medical facility. His son, Don Jr., weighing in, saying his dad is in great spirits. Let's go right to Richard Goldinger, the Butler County, Pennsylvania DA, who joins me on the phone. Sir, thank you for talking to us. First of all, were you at the rally this evening?
Lester, no, I was not present at the rally today. No.
All right. Can you tell us what at least the early part of the investigation has shown in terms of what we know potentially about the shooter and his motive?
Well, I don't know anything about a motive. I can tell you basically what you've already stated. We have, a spectator dead. unfortunately, we have a second spectator injured and seriously, and the shooter obviously is dead also. So, yeah, that's where we are at this point.
The Secret Service, as we see, moved in quickly but methodically as they work to protect the former president. What interaction occurs before a rally like this between local officials such as yourself and the Secret Service?
Well, I can tell you that for the last week or so, when this was first announced, that they have been talking to the Pennsylvania State Police, our local municipal officers. We have a CERT team that was activated for this event, and there was a lot of coordination to provide safety for not only the former president, but everybody that attended this event. So there was a lot of preparation put into this, obviously in a short period of time. But these people are professionals, so they know what they're doing, and they, they put the proper steps into place to provide safety to everybody that was going to be there.
Mr. Goldinger, do you know, is this venue, is it a kind of a portable setup, or is it a setup that's there permanently?
No, it's a permanent setup. It's sort of like, it's called the farm show, but it's sort of like a fair. So it's a large, wide open area. There's actually an airport there also, a small airport. So, yeah, it wasn't anything that they had to come in and set things up as far as, well, we're going to have this event here. They had to set the bleachers up and everything like that. But,
yeah, and then I'm curious, are you familiar, we're now getting the reporting that the shooter fired from an elevated position. Can you, in your mind, picture what that position might have been? Is there a nearby hill?
I absolutely can. Yes, I can. And so that would have been several hundred yards away, in my mind, from where President Trump would have been speaking. And again, off-site. So,
was it a hill or just a elevated area?
No, it's all fairly flat from what I can think. But obviously, if you get on a roof, you're elevated. So, and the showgrounds where they were at is all fairly flat.
All right, Mr. Goldinger, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us. We continue to watch these pictures again. We've played them, we know, over and over again, but I feel like you see something different. One of the things in my previous reporting with the Secret Service, you see that woman who appears to be around the president. One of the things they are trained to do is to take their hands and then work it across the person's body and find out if there are other wounds that may have not revealed themselves yet. And they certainly do that once the protectee is put into the vehicle, again, to make sure that they can get an early read on any other traumatic injuries or wounds. So we continue to learn and see different things in this video, but certainly an example of professionalism, calm thinking, and training at work here as we watch these Secret Service agents move into this coordinated action, calling out vital information in short and terse statements. Shooter is down. Are we clear? And that sort of back and forth communication. It's fascinating to watch. NBC's Dasha Burns is still outside the what was the Trump rally. She was there when the shots rang out. She and her crew, we're happy to say, are safe. But you've been talking to people who were in a traffic jam. I don't see vehicles behind you, so it looks like there's some progress, Dasha, in clearing this area.
Yeah, Lester, last time we talked, there were cars all up and down this road here trying to get out of this venue. There were thousands of cars parked all across these lawns here. Now that's cleared up, but we did speak to some of the people who have been making their way out, people who witnessed this absolute tragedy. And I want to introduce you to some folks who kindly pulled their vehicle over for us so that we could speak with them. This is Stacy and Vanessa. And as you said, Lester, the former president now posted on Truth Social describing how he was shot in his ear, grazed by a bullet in his right ear. Well, Vanessa was right there. You both were right in front of the former president when this happened. Can you describe what you witnessed?
Yes, we were 6 rows back, straight in front of him, and at his podium. He could we could see him really good. He was talking about his chart, and he moved his head to the right to explain where they're at in the chart. And then as he moved his head to look at the chart up on the screen, that's when he got grazed in the ear. If he had not moved his head at that nick of time, it could have been a lot worse.
So he moved his head just in the right moment to get an ear graze instead of something worse.
Yes.
And Lester, let me just explain to you briefly, because we were on the press risers as the former president was starting his speech at the rally. He was only a few minutes in. What Vanessa is referring to when she's talking about those charts, he was talking about immigration and immigration under the Biden administration. He had screens on the left and the right of him, behind him, and he was pointing to one of those screens where he had a chart that was detailing immigration rates, and he turned to point to that chart, and that is when his ear was grazed, and you've seen this on the video. But to Vanessa's point, if he hadn't made that turn to show that chart, things could have been a lot different. Vanessa, where you were when you first heard those shots ring out, what went through your mind and what happened with you and the people around you?
At first, I didn't know if they were firecrackers. There were 6 pops. It just went pop, 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 pop. And then as I was staring straight ahead, I looked across and I didn't see anything. So I looked back at President Trump, and that's when he went down. And then
what ran through your mind?
That, you know, we are all in a situation that we could be very hurt. And they're telling us to all get down, stay down. And then a lot of things went through my mind. Where's my husband? What about the 3 people that we met today beside us? Who else could be injured? You know, why did this happen at President Trump's rally? I mean, a lot of things went through my head. Are we going to be out of here safe? You know.
What are you? I mean, you are safe, thank goodness, and I'm so glad you are. And I'm so sorry that we're meeting under these circumstances. As you sit here in your car now, trying to process all of this, what are you feeling now?
I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I'm glad that President Trump is okay. I worry about the children that were at the rally and how traumatized they are after witnessing all this. The little girl that was a couple rows ahead of us, oh, she was petrified. And what's going through her mind, is she going to be okay, or is she going to have, you know, nightmares? Or, you know, I worry about children. I worry about the people that lost their loved ones today. And I most certainly worry about my President Trump.
Vanessa,
we're okay.
I'm so glad you're okay. Vanessa, Stacey, thank you so much. And please, you deserve to go home. You deserve to get some rest now. And I hope you drive safe. And thank you so much. They've been here since 7 o'clock in the morning, a long day, and certainly not the day that you were expecting. So thank you so much. And Lester, the sun is now setting here in Butler County as the tragedy of the day is just starting to dawn on all of us who were here.
All right, Dosh, I think that woman sums it up well. She just wants to go home. It's been, for all those people who were there, what a story they will tell, and what a trauma, certainly an emotional trauma, to be a part of all that. Our investigative correspondent, Tom Witter, joins us again. Tom, what more are you learning from what appears to be a pretty rapidly unfolding investigation?
I think that's well put, Lester. I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes in law enforcement as they investigate it. The FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office locally is on top of it. We're in the process right now. We're just doing a little extra verification of video that appears to show the aftermath of the shooting and this individual who shot from, as you just heard the district attorney to you say, from several hundred yards away. It was not, if all this video syncs up and looking at the maps, it does not appear to have been head on, if you will. So our vantage point towards Trump, it would have been from off to the side. to what would be towards our left looking at this shooting. That's where it appears to have occurred, but we're still waiting to get more details at this hour. As far as, the president has said he was grazed by a wound, I'm looking there at both teleprompters, which would be the closest glass, and they both appear to be sound. There does not appear to be any sort of damage to them. So it does appear, at least initially, that that's the case, but we're waiting to get some additional confirmation. What will happen now, this investigation in some ways will be quick because they'll want to make sure that there's nobody else that they need to be looking for. We obviously have other people who are running for office or in office currently that they want to make sure are going to be safe or not impacted by anybody who knew this individual. But from a forensic standpoint, from other standpoints, they will slow this down. And once they search that individual's premises, they will make sure that they have a full accounting and cataloging of all the evidence. Even though the alleged shooter is believed to be deceased, they need to go through all of that. And just to take a bit of a step back here, Lester, we have been talking about for months. The FBI director has talked to you specifically about the incredible threat environment, and I don't use that word in a good way, but the incredible threat environment that is facing the United States. And at the center of that is obviously the tremendous political discord that we have, as well as foreign threats. And so when you look at this, this type of thing, unfortunately, is something that has been feared by law enforcement, that we would see some sort of political violence. And obviously, that's something that appears to have happened here today. So we're waiting to get more details. We do not have a name. I will caution people that are, as so often happens, Lester, as you know now, people are watching us and listening to what we have to say and keeping an eye on their phones and social media. There are several names that are going around on social media that I can tell you are flat out not true. Some of those individuals have been involved in prior mass shooting events. Some of those individuals are bloggers from foreign countries who have no nexus to this whatsoever. And so there's no indication, at least at this stage, that any of the names that have been widely circulated on social media are in fact associated with this shooter. And I think it's important for people to point that out. I'm not going to mention them because for some of those people, they have nothing to do with this, and we certainly don't want to give them any notoriety for no good reason.
Yeah, important to point out. All right, Tom Winter, thank you. We'll come back to you as you continue to gather more information. I want to bring back Evie Pomperus, a former Secret Service agent. I don't know if you heard my interview with the district attorney a few moments ago. He was describing there's an elevated area and perhaps of several hundred yards around this site. It's been pointed out that the wound received by Mr. Trump was on his right cheek. What are you able to put together as you visualize this?
You know, as I'm listening to the whole thing and we're hearing that the threat, in the terms that we would use, the threat's been neutralized, right? We understand, and what we're hearing is that the shooter is no longer alive. I'm thinking, how did that shooter get taken out? And was that shooter taken out actually at a distance? One of the elements you typically have when it comes to protection, you have counter sniper team. Sometimes the Secret Service will have their own team. Other times, if there are not enough resources, which can happen during a campaign season like this, if everybody's stretched out too thin, you may use a local element. So when I hear that the individual from a distance was shooting, I always think immediately of that counter sniper element. Was somebody able to take that person out? Now, when you have counter sniper, your counter snipers are always going to be at an elevated position. So if you're in an urban environment, they're going to be up in high-rise buildings. If you're in an environment like this, they're going to be maybe on any podiums or any stands, anything that gives them elevation. And what they're doing, Lester, consistently is they are looking out through their scopes, through their binoculars. They're looking out, and they're looking what's going on in the distance. So immediately, again, I'm assessing based on what we've done in the past. When you hear those sounds, you're immediately going to look to the direction of where those sounds go. You're going to engage eyesight-wise to see what do you see, and then is there a target to engage? So that's one way in which you can neutralize a threat. Another way that you can neutralize a threat from a distance is there will be a team on the ground. So the snipers are up top, they're seeing things, they're calling things out. You also have a team on the ground that can respond. So it's a possibility that that team on the ground, whether Secret Service or local law enforcement immediately went to that location if they're able to determine that location. So that's what you're going to think about when it comes to line of sight. And look, line of sight is one of the worst things. A lot of times when we have these outdoor events or the president speak in certain areas, you actually use the landscape to help you. And we've gone even to the extent of trees and bushes and anything you can think of to break line of sight. Line of sight is that one thing it makes you extremely vulnerable because it's such a hard thing to control, especially from a distance. And, and to follow up to, as I'm watching the reporting here and we see the agents coming in, and you brought this up before that the agents shielded the president and they're looking for wounds. You're correct. So as soon as they get the president off the stage, they go immediately into the vehicle and they're checking him for other wounds. And we actually saw a scenario like this play out with then President Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, same thing. He was outdoors. The difference with him, it was an arrival departure movement. So he's moving from a secure location to the car, and he's moving to the car, shots are fired. Now, at first glance, Reagan didn't look like he had anything. He looked okay. But his then detail leader in the vehicle actually searched him. And what they found was a small wound, and they found the gunshot wound, but that was not discovered until inside the vehicle. So although you're seeing him initially outside, he's standing, you see Donald Trump give the fist pump, but you really want to check him when he's in the car. And then from there, what you're going to do is you're going to take him to a hospital. So I know there was reporting that he was at some type of medical facility, a hospital, we're presuming. That's another thing that's put into basically the strategic response. You always have a hospital. That hospital, when you pick one, you're looking for something called a Trauma 1 hospital. Why do you want Trauma 1 hospital? A Trauma 1 hospital is a hospital that can deal with gunshot wounds. They can deal with mass trauma. So when you have a protectee, the idea, and in training, you understand that if they're going to be attacked, it's going to be likely with a weapon, a shot. So you want to take your protectee to a facility that can treat gunshot wounds, that can treat serious trauma. So it's very likely that the facility that Donald Trump was taken to was a facility like this. There's always an agent there in advance. They go in advance to speak to the medical staff. So there is a medical protocol that is put in place so that when something like this happens, the hospital and that agent is already there to receive the president and to do an assessment on him.
Let me ask you about who makes the decision as to how the venues are used. Does the campaign simply call up and say, hey, we're going to be at this site, you guys figure out how to secure it? Or do you tend to work together with the campaigns? How does that go?
It's usually the first, and it's probably one of the hardest things. The U.S. Secret Service works really hard to try not to intervene, not to interfere in their protectees' movements. Look, the President of the United States, a former president, when they're campaigning, they need to be with the people, shaking hands, talking to everybody. Secret Service, you want to keep them secure. You want to keep them away from everyone. So the goal is to try to let them do their job, because they're a person of the people. So who do they need to be with? The people. So Secret Service typically allows staff to pick the locations. We will go there. It's very, very rare. I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen it where they were told, no, you can't do it here. They are an agency that is very can-do. We can do this. I have to tell you, at first glance, even with this location, I don't see anything different than the other rallies I've been to myself. So this is quite common. Now, Secret Service can say no, but you really have to have a good reason as to why you're going to say no and justify that.
Abby, thank you. You continue to provide us with rich information as we try to visualize all these things and understand it and really interpret some of the video we've been seeing. We appreciate it. We'll ask you to stand by. I want to talk to Congressman Mike Kelly now. He was at that rally with his grandkids. Congressman, thank you for being with us. You guys okay?
Yes, Lester, thank you. We're fine.
How close were you to the former president, and what did you witness?
So I was about maybe 50 feet away from the podium where President Trump was speaking, and that with some other congressional members and a member for the Senate. But and then behind me were the stanchions where people were sitting in the seats. So very close to it. a very strange day. You can imagine where I live in Butler, Pennsylvania. This is an agriculture town. This is an ag area, right? And we had it at the Butler Farm Show today, which is for years I've been coming here. And actually, we always participate in the 4-H sale here where the children bring their animals in and sell them. They make pies and cakes. They have all these contests. This is about as basic as you can get. This is about as basic America as you can find. And today, Lester, I got to tell you, it was a beautiful summer day. People celebrating, people happy, people grilling food and getting ready for President Trump to come in. And then the aftermath of it was just shaking. You just couldn't believe it. And I'm really concerned as we go forward. There's something wrong in America right now. Look, this doesn't make sense. I will tell you this, though, as President Trump and his right ear, the bullet went through his right ear. It's a fraction of an inch maybe away from killing him. As he was leaving and as they were carrying him out, the Secret Service, he put his hand up in the air like, I'm okay. Unfortunately, the people behind me, about 10 rows up in the stands, there were people up there yelling and screaming, and they were talking. They had blood on their shirts and stuff, and there was a man who was down there. The security team rushed over there. They took him out of the stands, and apparently he has since passed away. But Lester, there's something wrong. There's something wrong in America today. We certainly today look like a third world country. Look, if you don't like whoever the candidate is, just don't vote for them. An attempted assassination on a presumption of the candidate. We're going into our convention this week. Former President Trump is going to come out as our candidate. What is wrong? What has happened in America? This is absolutely bizarre.
Do you think that we will hear a different tone for the rest of this campaign coming from frankly, both sides?
You know what? I would sure hope so. But do you know, and because I think you all covered this before, in 2017, our Republican baseball team was practicing for a spring baseball game as a charity event. And our leader now, Steve Scalise, was, again, a gunman attacked our guys while they were at practice and shooting up the place.
Yeah, I reported that.
I just don't understand this anymore. I really don't understand. The greatest nation in the world right now has succumbed to being a third world country. The level of hate, the level of discourse that takes place has got to stop. It has got to stop, and we've got to return to who we are. We are a great, great nation, and we say in all our prayers, under God, under God, under God. Well, I'm sure that right now, people of faith, tomorrow on Sunday morning, please go to wherever it is that you worship, drop to your knees tonight and pray for America. Pray for President Trump, that he's going to be okay. We also have, as I said, one man was shot. This guy is just there celebrating a day at the farm show grounds, and all of a sudden somebody takes into their hands. They have to start shooting up the crowd, shoot the president in the head. It's absolutely, it's off the charts. Third world country now. We have to start rallying around about who we are. When 1.5 million men in uniform and women in uniform have died to give us the right to practice the form of government we have, for us to be so casual and so callous about it? No. It's time for America to get back to being America.
And Congressman, you were there with your grandchildren. I didn't get the ages of the, with the young children.
Yeah. I mean, so we had children there anywhere from 4 years old up to 12 years old. Let's see, about 10 of them. My wife was there. My sister-in-law was there with her grandchildren. One of my sons was with me. And you have to wonder, as the children came back, they're just, Grandpa, why would somebody do that? Grandpa, why did somebody do that? They don't like President Trump. Just don't vote for him. And I've said, kids, I'll tell you what. That's why Grandpa is in Congress. We have got to go. We have got to get this country back on the beam. We cannot allow this to continue to unravel. Lester, I mean, really, we're like a third world country right now, right? I mean, this is absolutely off the charts. Evil. It can't exist. We can't allow it to exist, and we can't tolerate it. We can't say, well, that's going to happen from time to time. No, it's not. It cannot be allowed. 1.5 million men and women in uniform to give us the right to vote and do the things we do, for it to be this way now?
Obviously a shocking and terrible evening as we hear the former president is okay, but as we've noted that one person was killed, 2 others have been badly injured in this. Congressman, thank you for taking a few minutes. We're glad you and the kids you're with are safe. I want to go to Garrett Hake now. He covers former President Trump. Garrett, Donald Trump has posted tonight on Truth Social. Talk through us what he wrote.
That's right, Lester. The former president using his preferred medium to inform the world of his status and the fact that he's okay. His message really in three parts. First, thanking law enforcement and the Secret Service for their swift action in Butler after the shooting. Second, offering his condolences for the person in the crowd, presumably a Trump supporter, who was killed and the other person seriously injured, about whom we don't have any additional update now. And then describing his experience with what he says was being shot through the skin of his right ear, saying that he knew immediately that it was a bullet. He felt the bullet ripping through skin. He says much bleeding took place, and he realized what had happened. He concludes, God bless America. We don't know yet, Lester, if this will be the only communication we get from the former president tonight. He is, of course, scheduled to go to Milwaukee and be seen there on Monday for the start of the Republican National Convention. But obviously, not just a personal crisis for him, a sort of crisis for the country with this moment of apparent political violence with an apparent assassination attempt, but also a crisis for his campaign that will now have to figure out what exact steps they'll need to take, both to make sure he remains safe today, tomorrow, and going forward, particularly with the convention where tens of thousands of people are expected to attend over the four-day event, and what, if anything, they want to make of this moment politically. You know, the former president said in his Truth Social post that nothing is known yet about the shooter. He makes no comment about that. His supporters, though, are using images like the ones we're seeing on the screen, including now both of his sons, pinning those images to their X accounts, the website formerly known as Twitter, pointing out the idea that their father, the Republican nominee in waiting, if you will, is a fighter and kind of seizing on this moment to elevate him politically. And so we have the physical update here from the former president. Again, he claims that he was shot through the upper part of his right ear. By all accounts, will be just fine. The political reverberations, of course, entirely unpredictable at this moment, but already going on behind the scenes. The Trump campaign, as we've reported earlier in the evening, putting their staffers on lockdown, telling people not to talk to the press, not to talk at all while they figure out the steps at a more senior level they want to take going forward. And Lester, I'll just add, as I mentioned earlier in our broadcast tonight, that concerns about the former president's safety on the campaign trail have always been on the front burner at the senior level of the Trump campaign. The mega rallies that he likes to hold with tens of thousands of people in open areas. Concerns about how to continue to conduct those safely in kind of a hot political environment, in an environment where he just might not be safe. There was much talk about those events, and even the smaller events where he likes to drop by at fast food restaurants or firehouses, the kind of unscheduled stops that presidential candidates like to make. At every single one of these stops that are discussed, there are serious high-level discussions about whether they can be conducted safely. It'll be borne out in the reporting to come what kind of conversations were had about this rally and how, if at all, Donald Trump will change his posture towards these rallies that have become such a hallmark of his over his political career.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because this is a part of his certainly his political identity. He loves these type of moments and these rallies, so it would be hard to imagine his campaign without that. But I guess that is one of the many.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
We did see, Lester, earlier this year, his campaign made a tactical decision in Iowa and New Hampshire when they realized that these giant rallies were pulling in so many people from states that weren't relevant. You know, if you held an event in Iowa for 10,000 people and 6,000 of them drove over from Illinois, it wasn't helping you in the caucus. So they made tactical decisions along the way to shrink events for that purpose. Obviously, in a general election, when you're talking about 70, 80 million voters across the country, but mostly focused on battleground states, it doesn't seem outside of reason that they might find smaller events that look just as good on television might be safer, easier, certainly cheaper going forward. But again, I think these are all conversations that are going to be had down the line with a president, as you note, who very much likes to have these events, to talk about the crowd size, and to make that part of the sort of his idea of projecting strength as a candidate.
All right, Garrett Hake, thanks. We'll ask you to stand by as I bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson. Hallie, we have been hearing from members of the Trump family tonight. In fact, Garrett mentioned some of them. Obviously, I guess they are the lone conduits. The campaign itself is being very quiet right now.
Yeah, they are. And they have taken on the position now of sort of communicating to the American people, as their father has now done in that Truth Social, that online post that Garrett just referenced, how their dad is doing. Donald Trump Jr. is saying that his father is in good spirits, that he has spoken with him. I have heard from somebody else who has spoken with the former president, very close with him, who describes him as very tough. And so we know that the former president was shot in the ear based on, of course, that post. His daughter Ivanka Trump also releasing a post saying that she loves her father, condemning political violence, as so many on either side of the aisle have done tonight now over the course of the last 3 hours or so. I was struck listening to your conversation there with Congressman Kelly, Lester, who knows Butler very well. That's his hometown. He was raised there. The place where this rally was held, this is, to use a cliche, Lester, it was Trump country. I mean, this is a place that skews heavily Republican, where Republicans outnumber Democrats 2-1, where Donald Trump handily won back in 2020 by something like 2/3 of the vote there. This is a place where he would, of course, be focusing on coming up in this upcoming election. It was a notable location for his rally just 2 days now before the convention was supposed to begin, because it was the last rally before Milwaukee. There was some question 4 hours ago as to whether or not the former president might actually roll out his running mate, his vice presidential pick there. That had been where so much of the focus and the conversation politically was for Donald Trump and for his campaign in the moments, of course, before this horrific shooting happened, this horrific attack. Now, obviously, the conversation has changed, and I can tell you, based on some of the reporting from our team here at NBC News, a source familiar with planning for the convention says this changes everything. That is reflected by some of the conversations that I've had as well. Sort of people are going, how could this go on as normal? So I think there is a real question mark as to the days ahead. But I think probably the most urgent one, and the question that we are working on too, is just physically, where does Mr. Trump go from here? Will we hear, for example, from any of the doctors who treated him? Will we perhaps see him publicly, maybe tonight, maybe early tomorrow morning? Will he want to make an appearance like that to come out and reassure the American people that he is, in fact, okay, that he is, in fact, in good spirits, Lester? And so I think there is obviously more to come on this story as we continue to report it out, both politically and from a law enforcement perspective, as you see the former president there and what has become that now iconic image.
Hallie, thank you. Let me go to Kristen Welker in our Washington, D.C. bureau. We're hearing from members of the President Biden's cabinet in reaction to this apparent assassination attempt.
Lester, we are the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, posting, "I am shocked and saddened by the shooting of former President Trump's rally and grateful that he is safe," reiterating what the president said tonight, that there is absolutely no place for political violence in America. We must all condemn it. We're also hearing from the Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, who says the entire Department of Defense condemns this violence, which has absolutely no place in our democracy. I think you're going to hear that term reiterated a number of times. Austin goes on to say, "This is not the way we resolve our differences in America, and it must never be. I am relieved that reports indicate former President Trump is safe, and I am praying for him and his family and everyone affected by this appalling incident." So incredibly strong language coming from the Biden administration, bolstering what we heard from President Biden tonight, condemning this violence in the strongest terms possible. And Lester, again, this is a moment where people on both sides of the aisle are coming together to condemn this, to say that we cannot tolerate this as a country and that, quite frankly, something has to change. It is worth noting that Congress has a role to play here. Obviously, federal authorities are going to lead the investigation into exactly what happened, how this could have happened at a Trump rally. But Congress also wanting to get to the bottom of how this unfolded. The chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, writing in a statement, "I've already contacted the Secret Service for a briefing and am also calling on the Secret Service director to appear for a hearing." So, Lester, again, this is just the beginning of the process of starting to understand, starting to get to the bottom of exactly what happened and how this country will prevent this from happening again, both from a security standpoint, Lester, but also in terms of how our politics is conducted, the political rhetoric that is used in this country, and the tone with which this campaign is being waged.
And
Lester?
I think it's fair to say that there will be a desire to at least frame what occurred here tonight, and so to find out more about this shooter will certainly probably direct many of the conversations we'll have in the coming days. I want to go back to Tom Winter now, our investigative correspondent. Tom, what more have you learned? Tom, you there?
Yeah, hey, Lester. Sorry, we've just been on the phone, as you can imagine. I've got a couple of phones all working at once. We can say that the shooter has been identified to us by 4 senior law enforcement officials as a male. And I think shortly, we're just in the process of going through the last bit of verification. I kind of alluded to this when we were speaking moments ago. We're going to be able to show you video of where or a still image of where this individual was. And it's coming into a little bit more clarity at this point of where this person was. Obviously, they were using some sort of a high-powered rifle. As you know, a handgun would not be able to fire with the accuracy and velocity from the distance this individual would have been at. What type of weapon that is specifically, I've heard a lot of different things floating around and things competitively. It's just my experience that it's too soon to really get a handle on that level of granular detail. We do not have yet a name. As I mentioned to you the last time we spoke, there are a number of names on social media that do not appear to be the individual that's involved in this, and we're still waiting to get some clarification on that. So right now, here's the state of the investigation at 9:40 Eastern Time. Law enforcement believes that they have a single alleged shooter who is now deceased. That individual, that name that they have, is being kept very close to this investigation. They are in the process of trying to get any other information about this person's motives, their background, that they can get, and then to be able to figure out where this investigation goes. Of course, they want to rule out whether or not this individual had any help. They want to rule out what may have led up to this. And of course, long-term, Lester, there'll be an analysis of the security plan for this site. The security plan going forward for the former president will undoubtedly change radically, I'm sure effective immediately. And so that will be a big change at various rally sites. And then there'll be a look into, was there anything about this individual that could have been looked at further? Did anybody know if they had any sort of knowledge of this in advance? So those are all the things that are happening literally as we speak. We do know that the FBI was requested by the U.S. Secret Service to investigate this, and that call was obviously taken, and the FBI is very much involved, along with the local U.S. Attorney's Office. And they will go through and get the necessary warrants for the property of this individual and anybody known to them. And the question is, obviously, where did things come from and when, and was this person picked up in the moments beforehand? We're a little bit more cautious in this day and age, not that we never were, but we're a little more cautious in this day and age with deep fake videos, with AI generated videos and images that we really try to do to the best of our human ability, an exhaustive effort to make sure that things that are floating around online or are sent to us are in fact accurate and are not some sort of machine generated image. The images you are looking at are most certainly not. And it should be pointed out that there's a number of photographers that are part of the press pool who took these photographs, and as well as the video that we've seen, and that those individuals obviously were potentially in harm's way as well, but not as much, obviously, as the Secret Service agents who rushed to surround the former president and make sure that if there were any other shots that were fired, that it would hit those Secret Service agents and not Trump.
All right, Tom, thanks for that update. When you are able to show us those images you mentioned earlier, just let us know and we'll go back to you. But I want to go to Milwaukee right now, where they are preparing for the Republican National Convention this coming week. Vaughn Hilliard is there. And Vaughn, I understand we're getting some word from the RNC about going forward.
Right, Lester. A great many of the delegates are already here in Milwaukee. Of course, the expectation was that elected officials, of course, the former president and presumptive Republican nominee himself would be making their way to town here in Milwaukee for the week-long convention. The new statement here from the RNC, I want to read it directly to you. Quote, as was communicated earlier this evening, President Trump is doing well and grateful to law enforcement and first responders for their fast action. President Trump looks forward to joining you all in Milwaukee as we proceed with our convention to nominate to serve as the 47th President of the United States. As our party's nominee, President Trump will continue to share his vision to make America great again. Sincerely, Donald J. Trump for President 2024. Senior advisors Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita. Lester, I just talked to two of the delegates here at the convention that are already in town. Reince Priebus, who folks will recall was the former RNC chairman. He is playing host here in his hometown of Milwaukee for this convention. There is a reception this evening for the delegates, the thousands of delegates coming here to Wisconsin. That reception this evening has been canceled. There are formal meetings for the Republican convention ahead of the formal festivities during the week. Those are still on tap to take place tomorrow before Monday night's primetime addresses begin. Of course, Donald Trump himself is slated to take the stage here at this arena on Thursday night. His vice presidential running mate is slated to take the stage on Wednesday night. Of course, we do not know who this individual is at that time. One of the delegates I talked to here this evening, Lester, told me that he expects the energy to only increase with today's events in the apparent assassination attempt of the presumptive Republican nominee with less than 120 days until the general election. That delegate suggesting to me that the TV ratings for that Thursday night primetime speech that will happen 10, 11 p.m. Eastern time will be high. For this Republican Party, Lester, Donald Trump was somebody who ran through the Republican primary process and handily won to get to this point here. He has had these rallies around the country 9 years running now, and here today in Pennsylvania, less than 48 hours before we expected him to arrive alongside his wife Melania and his sons Eric and Don Jr., as well as a daughter Ivanka, and expected to Barron as well, before the family were to arrive here less than 48 hours. This convention will move forward, we're told, though, in its anticipated events as they were previously planned. Lester.
All right, Vaughn, thanks very much. I want to continue that part of the conversation with Kristen Welker, moderator of Meet the Press. She's in Washington. Kristen, you've got thousands of delegates, as Vaughn mentioned, heading to the RNC the next 24 hours. It's obviously going to be a massive security operation, and as someone had pointed out, it's going to be of an intense interest.
Well, Lester, you're absolutely right about that. And look, security had been front and center prior to this shooting at the Trump rally in Pennsylvania, and so now undoubtedly they will reassess. We would not be surprised to learn that they will bolster security in various areas. But again, you are talking about thousands of people descending upon Milwaukee, not just Republicans, Democrats as well, to deliver the counterpoint to the speeches that we're all going to be tracking every night. And then, of course, the media, the journalists will be there. So this will be a city that will be bustling, that will be brimming. So undoubtedly the security, again, Lester, is going to just be critical. We have talked so much about perimeters this evening. We know that both the Republican National Convention as well as the Democratic National Convention, which gets underway in August, that the planners for those events have spent a lot of time focused on the perimeters, making sure that they are as strong, as secure as possible, that it is as difficult as possible to access the area where the speakers will be, where the delegates will be. And so, again, Lester, this is a moment for a reset. Undoubtedly, when those who are planning the Republican National Convention, the security detail for that event will take a step back and reassess everything that they have just planned. Lester, all of this comes as we're getting a statement from the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, about the shooting tonight. The first time we are hearing from him, he says, I have been briefed on the shooting at former President Trump's rally and have briefed the president. The FBI, ATF, U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Pennsylvania and the Department's National Security Division are currently working with the Secret Service as well as state and local law enforcement partners on the ground in Butler, Pennsylvania. My heart is with the former president, those injured, and the family of the spectator killed in this horrific attack. We will not tolerate violence of any kind, and violence like this is an attack on our democracy. The Justice Department will bring every available resource to bear to this investigation. So there again, you have the Attorney General echoing what we have heard from President Biden, from members of his cabinet, from the Vice President, who has also put out a statement this evening to condemn the violence, condemning this violence in the strongest terms possible. We have, of course, Vaughn was just talking about the fact that this day started with journalists, people who are interested in politics, wondering if this would be the day that former President Trump would announce his pick for the VP nomination. And of course, this was not the day. This turned into a very different day. But all of those who are a part of that process have weighed in as well to condemn this violence in the strongest terms possible. And again, Lester, this is one of those moments where, to some extent, for a brief moment, the politics gets put aside. President Biden halting his campaign ads. The Trump campaign went into a virtual lockdown until former President Trump put that statement out. But again, everyone still responding and reacting to the horrific events that unfolded in Pennsylvania.
Some things
today.
are bigger than politics, and certainly the life and death nature of what we have witnessed today. Our thoughts, obviously, with the family of the deceased victim, the other two that are injured. On this horrific day. We want to bring in Evie Pampouras, again, a former Secret Service agent. If I can continue the conversation we were having with Kristen with you regarding strengthening the security, potentially strengthening the security at the Republican National Committee. I would think there's only so much you can do, considering it was already a high threat environment. What sort of options will the Secret Service have to spread its footprint?
Well, here's the thing. They're going to do more and a lot more. So there is a lot more that can be done. For one, it's not just the U.S. Secret Service that's got the manpower. The majority of the manpower doesn't come from the Secret Service. The majority of the manpower comes from the local police department, the men and women that work locally and for the state. So you're going to see an upscale of the state and the local police entities coming in to secure the RNC. That's where the upscale is going to take place, because they too don't want anything happening on their watch, on their ground. The U.S. Secret Service in all, it's maybe a couple of thousand agents. It's not a big agency. Yes, are they elite? Are they tactically trained? Absolutely. But in the end, they work together and in harmony with all the local entities. The local departments, the local police, the state police, they're the one who come in with the manpower. And that's what you're going to see. You're probably also going to see a lot of uniforms. And why am I saying this? When you do a security venue, you design your security plan around a lot of different things. One of the things you think about is uniforms. How many uniforms do I want? I want a lot of uniforms. Do you know why? Something as simple as seeing men and women in police uniforms is a massive deterrent. So you're going to see this huge footprint. Now, this is also important because when you have an incident like this, now you have to worry, Lester, about copycats. We don't typically see these incidents, right? Last one we saw really was Reagan. These happened over decades. We've just had one. So now everybody's concern is somebody else going to get the idea that they can do this? Because what's happened is somebody did this. Another person who has an unhealthy or special interest in one of these protectees is going to say, this guy did it, or gal, we don't know. I think I can do it too. And so now we have to worry about copycats, other people who are going to think that they can do this. So you've got this concern. Now, going back to the investigative arm of it, you're going to look at, well, the FBI is really going to be the investigative entity here. And this is why some people would presume the Secret Service would be. They are not. By design, FBI comes in. This is kind of a checks and balances system, because let's say, and we're not saying any of this is true, but the Secret Service can't investigate itself. The FBI is going to look at how did this happen? Did all the security measures go into place correctly? If there was a special interest, if there were people of interest that the Secret Service was looking at, did they vet all these people correctly? So you want an outside entity like the FBI to come in to do this investigation. It's a checks and balances system. Now, also in the Secret Service, there's a protective intelligence arm. What does that mean? These are the men and women that look at the threats that come in. As you can imagine, protectees, presidents, former presidents, all sorts of folks, there are a lot of threats that come in. And one of the issues is, what should we pay attention to and what is nothing? And it can be a really difficult thing to determine. What do I follow up on? What do I think is minimal or not as important? So they're going to go back and they're going to look. This individual, were they of any interest? Were there any indicators of this specific person? Had they made any comments, posts? What was going on? And had they ever come into the radar or realm of the U.S. Secret Service or any other local police entity? And if so, what happened? Did they interview this person? Did they decide that the person was not of any interest? That's going to come into play. And even when it comes to protective intelligence, they classify people. Now, I can't get into the nuances for, classified reasons, but there's a way to classify folks, whether somebody is considered a really high threat. You know what? This person is super dangerous. We have to be careful. We want police involved. Maybe if there's a mental health issue, because it does happen, a lot of the threats that do come in tend to be tied to mental health issues, unusual or unhealthy interests in the people that the Secret Service protects.
Evie, let me ask you, how big a chill do you think this has cast over people who do what you do, people who, work in the Secret Service and run these security operations, to see one of their protectees being taken to a vehicle bloodied? How does that affect the people that do this?
It's a big deal. It's a massive big deal. I mean, as I'm sitting here, I've been on standby with you guys. My phone's blowing up. All the former agents or people I know, can you believe this happened? Can you believe this? This is not a small thing. It really isn't. I know we're breaking it down play by play, but from the protective realm, this stuff does not happen. It doesn't happen, and that's a good thing. You know why? Because security plans are put into place so you can minimize this stuff. But I have to say, you can only control so many things. These open rallies, they are really difficult. And I wonder if moving forward, we're going to see less and less of these. Lester, in your time when you did your reporting, and when Kristen was talking before, I actually worked alongside Kristen when I was still in the Secret Service and she was in the press pool. You will see often Secret Service and staff kind of almost negotiating. Well, we don't want to do this. Well, we want to do that. And it's this back and forth. And you can see now a little bit of a reality check, or as Kristen was saying, a reset, where staff and White House officials who tend to think sometimes from a security standpoint, and I would hear too, come on, that's too much. It's not going to happen. You're going to see them now pull back and acquiesce a little bit more and listen and not fight back as much when the Secret Service says, hey, this isn't a great idea.
Does the Secret Service have to educate the protectees? Are they, do they get a briefing about what to expect if something like this occurs, what to do, how to react?
They do get a briefing. They obviously know where to stand, where not to move. So if you look at podiums, and again, a lot of the podiums, not this one specifically, but most podiums, especially the president, a lot of them are ballistic in nature, so they understand, hey, when you're speaking, don't step away from the podium, or if they do step away, it's choreographed. Not all protectees are the same. There are some protectees that really listen, they follow the script, they don't go off script, they do and they move as you think they're going to do. And there are some that, well, you have, and they will do what they want. Now, you have to manage both, but when you do have, I don't want to say that they're wild cards, but when you have that protectee who decides, I'm going to stay on this rope line a little longer, or I'm going to make a beeline and go shake these people's hands, or I'm going to walk away and do this, does that kind of make the hair stand in the back of your neck? It absolutely does. It causes issues.
And of course, we know that within the next few days, there will be a vice presidential running mate selected by Mr. Trump, and that will be one more candidate you'll have to protect.
It is another candidate. As you know, as the people get added on, it's more, I don't want to say stress, but it's more resources that the U.S. Secret Service has to divvy out. And look, right now, it's all hands on deck. Anytime it's a campaign year, it's all hands on deck. And a lot of people don't know this, Lester. U.S. Secret Service, they have an investigative arm. They're actual criminal investigators. They work criminal investigations, fraud, counterfeit money, all sorts of things. Actually, they were created April 14th, 1865. President Lincoln was the one who created the U.S. Secret Service. And their mission was to combat counterfeit currency. It wasn't protection. Protection came later, many years later, because there were so many different assassinations and assassination attempts made on presidents or presidential candidates that the government stepped in and said, U.S. Secret Service, will you now do protection? So during campaign years, all the criminal investigations stop, all these other things stop because the manpower goes to protection. And look, the world is watching. Right now, we're sharing this. Everybody's watching. The world is watching. And one of the things is, this is truly a symbolic thing. You know, often people would say to me, how could you take a bullet for this person or that person? They would see it on a very individual or personal level. You don't take a bullet for the person. It's something bigger. It's symbolic. What does it mean symbolically to the world, not just to the American people, when somebody can cause harm to one of the most powerful world leaders? It sends a message, and it's also the image of the U.S. It can either strengthen us or weaken us, and perception is reality when it comes to politics and how the world sees us.
Well, it's an important calling, and we've certainly seen it in action tonight. We appreciate you breaking it down as we come to understand what goes on behind these pictures and how it all played out tonight in Pennsylvania. Abby, thank you. We'll hopefully be able to come back to you here shortly. Our viewers just joining us, we are on the air with rolling breaking coverage. We have been covering the shooting at Donald Trump's Pennsylvania rally this evening. The former president has been injured in what appears to be an apparent assassination attempt. The Secret Service says the president is safe. Tonight, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that he was in fact hit with a bullet that pierced the upper part of his right ear. He said that he felt it ripping through his skin. What I want to do again here is pause. We're going to roll the video of what happened just shortly after 6 p.m. here on the East Coast while Mr. Trump was speaking. And listen carefully. You'll hear the sound of the gunshots and what appears to be the moments right after that until he is rushed into his car. Here it is.
A little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the spare. Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready. We ready? Down. Shooters down. Are we good? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good to move? Shooters down. We're good to move. We're clear. Let's move. Let's move. We're clear. Let me get my shoes. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold on, your head is bloody. So we gotta move to the bus. Move to the bus. Let me get my shoes. Okay, my shoes down. Get the shoe. Watch out.
And that is the point that he's put in the car and taken to a medical facility. Here's what we know right now. If you're just joining us, the gunman fired a weapon from a high point outside the perimeter of the rally. So outside the Secret Service security area, if you will. The shooter, described as a male, is dead. Also, a spectator who was attending the rally has been killed, and 2 others who were there were critically injured, according to the Secret Service. President Biden has been briefed. He addressed the nation a little while ago.
But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully and without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody.
And former President Trump has issued a statement extending his condolences to the loved ones of the rally goer who was killed and the others who were injured. He also thanked law enforcement and first responders for their quick action. His campaign says he is fine and has been checked out at a local medical center. His son Don Jr. weighed in, saying his dad is in great spirits. His daughter Ivanka wrote on social media, thanking supporters for their love and prayers for her father and the other victims of today's senseless violence. And another important note, Mr. Trump says he looks forward to attending the Republican convention in Milwaukee this coming week. Let's get right to NBC investigative correspondent Tom Witter, who has more on the investigation. Tom?
That's right, Lester. In a statement we received just moments ago from the FBI, they say, quote, they have assumed the role of the lead federal law enforcement agency in the investigation of the incident involving former President Donald Trump that occurred earlier today in Butler, Pennsylvania. The statement goes on to say, Lester, that special agents of the FBI Pittsburgh field office responded immediately to include crisis response team members and evidence response technicians. They say we will continue to support this investigation with the full resources of the FBI alongside our partners at the U.S. Secret Service and state and local law enforcement. And Lester, tonight they're asking anybody that might have any information about what led up to the shooting today and the shooting itself to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. So that's the latest statement we just received moments ago from the FBI, who has taken the lead on this. They'll work with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Pennsylvania that's based in Pittsburgh. If there's going to be any sort of criminal prosecution, to type up the warrants and get the information to continue to pursue this investigation, as you and I have been talking about now for several hours. As far as what we know, we still do not yet have a name of the alleged shooter in this incident. The shooter, based on images, video, and descriptions from law enforcement that we've seen, appears to be, if you were to look at the former president head-on from the video that we've been looking at, appears to have been off to his right, and that the shooting was, we've been described to us as several hundred yards away, that the shooter was on top of an elevated surface and then was shot and killed by the United States Secret Service, and then law enforcement obviously rushed to where the shots were coming from. How many shots were specifically fired from the shooter and from the Secret Service or maybe other members of law enforcement, we just don't know. He has been described as a male, and that's really the only information that we have. His specific motives or background, is he somebody who law enforcement has ever been in contact with before? Those are all questions that we are asking, we've been asking, and we're trying to get that to you, of course, as soon as possible. As far as where things go from here, there's obviously a convention involving this candidate starting in just a day plus time, and he is expected to address the RNC obviously on Thursday evening. He has a vice president pick to make, and so what would be normally a very busy time for the Secret Service as they pick up a potential vice president or a vice president candidate, as I should say, that now it's going to be only so much more intense because of this obvious apparent assassination attempt on the former president and the presumptive Republican nominee. And so this changes the game radically. The New York City Police Department tonight beefing up their presence outside of the Trump Tower, just a couple of blocks from where you and I are sitting up Fifth Avenue, where, of course, the former president has a residence. Now, he hasn't been staying there. His new residence is Mar-a-Lago in Florida, as you know, but they have beefed up out of an abundance of caution. No specific intelligence that something would happen at Trump Tower, but I think based on the events today, you can see any of the Trump properties where he has stayed, where he might stay, to face an increased law enforcement presence until everybody figures out exactly what's going on here. We've seen no indication that there are any other individuals involved. On the other hand, nobody so far has told us that there are no other individuals involved, and that's obviously part of an active investigation. They do have images of this person, they do have their body, and so presumably they do have an identification as well. And so we'll continue to track the specifics about this person, what may have led up to it, and all the questions that we would normally ask, including the type of weapon that may have been used in this. But obviously, law enforcement, I could tell you, up and down the East Coast tonight, acutely aware of what happened today and following it very closely. And as you and I have discussed on numerous occasions in your exclusive interview with the FBI director, we are no doubt in a heightened threat environment. They've been very concerned about the idea of some sort of a political-based violence. And obviously tonight it appears we've seen exactly that, Lester.
All right, Tom Winter, our investigative producer with the very latest. Tom, thanks very much. We should note while you were talking, we got word that the President Biden, will be cutting short his Delaware weekend and heading back to the White House, apparently as a result of all of this. NBC's Dasha Burns is just outside that Trump rally. She was there when the shots rang out. Dasha, earlier we saw people, you were talking to people who were leaving the rally site. Were any of them detained, not obviously for suspects, but detained for questioning as witnesses of what they saw?
Yeah, Lester, one of the gentlemen that we spoke with who was right next to the man who was shot and killed. He was just next to him a couple of yards away at the rally. He actually said he helped to carry his body out of the venue. He's an OBGYN from Pennsylvania. His name is Joseph. We spoke with him earlier as we've been in this parking lot. Here you see now night has fallen in Butler County. This parking lot that was just recently filled with thousands and thousands of cars, people who came here for a political rally, never thinking that something like this would happen here in Butler County, a small rural area that's typically pretty quiet. Now this lot is empty, and we did have a conversation with that man, Joseph, who says he has been waiting to speak with Secret Service. We're going to follow up with him to see how that conversation went, but he said he had been planning on having that conversation. I want you to take a listen to some of this interview and some of what he heard. That is where I ran into a man named Joseph, and I want to introduce him to you now. And as we just learned, Joseph, you weren't listening to the program here, but Lester Holt, NBC News, just reporting that one of the attendees has deceased, has died from injuries as a result of the shooting. Joseph, you told me off camera that you may have witnessed this, and I'm so sorry to be talking to you in this tragic moment, but can you describe what it is that you saw?
I was attending the rally. I was in the set of bleachers, the very far left of the podium where President Trump was speaking. I was there with friends. I heard several gunshots. The man beside me suffered a gunshot wound to the head, was instantly killed, fell to the bottom of the bleachers. Another woman looked like she got hit in the forearm or hand. And then at that point in time, it was rather chaotic at that point because half the people were looking because they thought it was fireworks. I knew it was gunshots right away. My friend, hit the deck. I was kind of looking around just trying to see where the shots were coming from. It seemed to me like the shots were coming from behind the bleachers. It seemed to me the man got hit in the head from behind. He was killed instantly as far as I could tell. And at that point, state police and a SWAT team, started evacuating the bleachers, and then I helped carry the man out of the bleachers to a tent that was behind.
And Lester, that's just one of the several harrowing stories that we heard from eyewitnesses today, people of all ages, people talking about the children that they saw, who they're so concerned about, who obviously are going to live with this trauma for the rest of their lives. Our own team, it was myself, my producer Bianca, our cameraman Sirkin, our audio technician Henry, our embed Jake. We were all there. We were all in the press pen when we heard those shots first ring out. All of us initially thinking this must be fireworks. There's no way this could happen here. We know how intense the security is around these events, and then coming to realize the reality of the situation, that it was in fact what we fear most when we think about the divisive political environment that we are in right now. I spoke to another woman named Vanessa who was just a few rows behind the former president. She says she witnessed him turn his head to point out a screen that was on the side of him where there was a chart showing immigration statistics. He turned to point at the moment that she saw that blood come out of his ear that we now know from his own Truth Social post was a bullet grazing his ear. She says if he hadn't turned his head at that very moment, things could have been very different for the former president and the current Republican candidate for president of the United States, Lester.
Yeah, I think anybody that looks at that picture comes to the same conclusion how close this was. Dasha, thanks. Rico Elmore was at the Trump rally and spoke at the event. He was an eyewitness and says he saw someone get hit by gunfire and rush to their side. He joins me on the phone. Rico, where were you in relation to the president?
So I was about 15, 20 feet to the president's right. I was a special guest, being that I spoke today with a few other friends of mine. We were speaking as well. And, yeah, I was like 15, 20 feet away.
And then as the shots rang out, did you identify them as shots right away? How did you react?
So a part of me thought they were fireworks. It was like a split mental thought, because I'm like, oh, you can't have a gun or anything in this area because of the security measures that are in place. It's impossible. So my brain says, that's a firework going off. How did that get here? Who knows? But it's something small. And then I heard the second shot go off, and like I said, these were split seconds. So like, I said, that's a gun. It's a firearm. So I got up. I yelled, everyone to get down. Everybody was getting down. Everybody was yelling, get down. I told people to get down. And then as I'm just pointing people and telling people, like, you know, get down. This is safe measures. And people were listening. And then I seen they had yelled for the medic, and there was an individual who was hit in the head. And there was no medical personnel in the area, so I ran to try to get them, you know, to get help.
Was this the individual that we believe was deceased?
Yes. I ran. I jumped over the barrier that was there. I ran up into the bleachers, and there was a towel that the people had, and I took the towel and I pushed it against the deceased head, and just to try to, it's all I could think about doing was trying to, you know, help him, but my efforts were in vain.
Yeah, Rico, you went to what was supposed to be a rally. It's supposed to be a fun thing for, you know, the party and candidate faithful, and it turns to this. These things sometimes take a long time to sink in, to know how close you were to danger. But have you seen any of the video, and just share with me your thoughts?
My thoughts are for the family. My thoughts are for the ones that were lost tonight in an act that was senseless and cowardice, all because of a feeling that one would have against an individual. No one had to lose their lives. You have the freedom of speech. You have the freedom to assemble. You have the freedom. You can go protest the fact that President Trump was there. Okay, that's fine. But to try to kill, to shoot into a crowd of thousands of people, I can't fathom that.
Yeah.
But my heart goes out to the families. It's unreal.
When did you realize the former president had been shot?
I didn't.
See,
Secret Service protects the president.
So they surrounded him as they're supposed to do. Yes, they did their job. My job was to get to the victims and to the people. I mean, that's what I felt my job was to do. You know. Are you attending the Republican National Convention this week?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well, Rico, thank you so much for.
Go ahead. Unless you know, they call me up and say we want you to attend and we'll fly you out here, I'm not attending.
Okay. Understood. Listen, thank you for talking to us. I'm sorry you had to witness what you did. It's awful to hear, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Garrett Hake covers former President Trump, and Garrett, Donald Trump has posted tonight on Truth Social. He filled in a lot of the blanks for us. Give us a sense of what he wrote.
That's right, Lester. While Donald Trump's campaign has been all but silent tonight, the candidate himself has been speaking out on Truth Social, in which he describes the incident from his perspective, talking about being up on stage and saying that he was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of his right ear. He says, "I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place," he said, "so I realized then what had happened." Lester, the former president also thanks law enforcement and offers his condolences to the person who was killed at the rally and another, he says, who was badly injured. I think we now know that there were 2 people who were badly injured. He also talks about the idea that he says it's incredible that an act like this can take place in our country, and says that even he knew nothing about the shooter at the time. That has been the only communication we have gotten from Donald Trump directly. What more we've been able to piece together has come from his son, Donald Trump Jr., who said on his social media that he had spoken with his father and that he was in good spirits, and from a statement combined from the RNC and from the Trump campaign about the convention set to get underway in Milwaukee on Monday that you were just describing, essentially saying that the convention will move forward and that Donald Trump looks forward to seeing people there, some 50,000 people expected to descend on Milwaukee. That's most of what we know about the former president's condition right now. We have no indication that he's been discharged from the hospital, no indication that he's returned to his plane or left the Pennsylvania area. He had nothing on his official calendar tomorrow. We were not expecting to see him pop up anywhere on Sunday. And on Monday, obviously, with the convention getting underway, we did expect to hear, perhaps by some point early Monday, who his choice for a vice presidential running mate was going to be. There'd been a lot of speculation, obviously, coming into this weekend, the last before the convention, that announcement could have come at today's rally. I guess now we will never know. But the nomination of the VP and of the nominee, the president, if you will, Donald Trump, is set to take place on Monday. So we will have to know that name at some point. How that announcement goes forward, in what capacity it goes forward, are one of the thousands of political questions that are going to come out of this moment, something unlike which we have ever seen before in American politics. I can tell you that one of Donald Trump's most senior campaign advisors, his de facto campaign manager, Chris LaCivita, who was with him at this rally in Pennsylvania, has also posted on social media recently, and I think it's a bit of a preview of what we're going to hear from the campaign, and certainly what we're hearing from the kind of greater MAGA universe of Trump supporters. He writes, Chris LaCivita, the campaign manager, writes, "For years, even today, leftist activists, Democratic donors, and now even Joe Biden," he alludes to a comment from the current president, he says, "have made disgusting remarks and descriptions of shooting Donald Trump. It's high time they be held accountable for it. The best way is through the ballot box." So at least the campaign manager, and Lester, I suspect soon the greater campaign apparatus and Republican Party, I think was going to take this moment to turn the language that we've been using collectively about this campaign, the stakes of it, on its head, and try to use it as a way to say both the temperature has to come down, and that somehow, as LaCivita says, those on the left should be punished electorally for what happened to Donald Trump today.
Garrett, does the former president typically go home, or does he sleep on the road when he's on these campaign trips?
No, Lester, he almost never sleeps on the road. Donald Trump prefers to sleep at his own properties. So depending on where he is in the country, we often see him either return to Mar-a-Lago in Florida, to his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, or to Trump Tower in New York City, or to a Trump property, either in a place like Trump hotel property, either in a place like Chicago or Las Vegas. It was our understanding he'd be going back to one of the Trump properties on the East Coast tonight, most likely Bedminster, his golf club in New Jersey. From there, he would travel to Milwaukee. Whether that plan changes tonight, I think is an open question. Obviously, Mar-a-Lago, all these properties are secured. We've heard from the NYPD tonight that they're sending extra resources to Trump Tower. All of these were properties that were secured by the Secret Service when Donald Trump was president. I can't speak to which ones are more secure than others, but I can say that obviously Mar-a-Lago is a private club, but it's a functioning, members-only club. So Donald Trump lives in a separate portion of that when he is there. At Bedminster, typically much fewer staff, much smaller footprint, less folks around. I would be speculating, but I can imagine you would probably want to be at one of these smaller, more easily protected locations here tonight, maybe less likely to go back to a place like Mar-a-Lago where other folks are likely to be there tonight. Yeah.
All right, Garrett Hake, we appreciate it. Thanks very much. Our senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joins us with her latest reporting. We understand President Biden is on the move this evening.
It is unusual to see the president traveling very late at night, but these circumstances have warranted that in his judgment. He will be leaving his Rehoboth Beach, Delaware residence and traveling back to the White House tonight. We expect that he will arrive here in Washington after midnight, returning to the White House sometime around 12:30 in the morning. This is a change in his schedule. It is absolutely as a result of the incident today. We heard from the president publicly in two forms already tonight. First, a written statement, and then, as you were in the chair earlier, when he spoke to the small group of reporters with him in Delaware, known as the Traveling Press Pool, and he addressed the concerns about this incident and said that he was trying to reach former President Trump to speak to him directly and personally by phone. They had not done so at that point. He described how he has been briefed by the head of the Secret Service, his Secretary of Homeland Security, and also other officials, including his Homeland Security advisor within the White House, who would be steeped in the knowledge of any potential threats. The president saying that he, of course, wants everyone across the political spectrum throughout the country to stand against acts of political violence, saying it cannot happen in America, should not happen in America. So with that as the backdrop, the president will be traveling back here tonight. We don't have specifics about how his schedule might change further. He certainly had plenty of events coming up in the days ahead. So that will be kind of a piece-by-piece moment as they assess the status of the investigation. I expect the president would want to have additional briefings, and by coming back to Washington, he could speak directly with some of the officials who are based here. Separately, I've been doing reporting that really began before this incident took place about changes coming at the Secret Service because of the Trump candidacy, going from former president who has a certain level of Secret Service detail to the status of being the presumptive nominee, about to be formally the nominee of the Republican Party, and the fact that they had made plans to increase the size of his protective detail and the teams around him because of the change in campaign pace and because of the necessities of travel. That certainly is borne out by these awful events today. In addition, 3 plane loads of chartered aircraft, 3 planes carrying Secret Service personnel traveled yesterday from their various assignments to Milwaukee for the convention, where they were intended to be going for a few purposes. Of course, all the related security for the convention itself, but also including the detail in waiting for the running mate selection, depending on the choice made by the former president about who he will run with on the ticket. And so preparing for that person's immediate family to be protected by Secret Service, adding another protectee in the sphere of what the Secret Service does. So these are some of the moving parts that are happening. Big questions, of course, about how does the political calendar change because of that? What's happening with the investigative pieces, learning many more details about who has been harmed today, the innocent victims who have been caught up in this, as well as a real medical status on the former president, and any information that we can gain through our reporting and with our law enforcement reporting colleagues about the suspected attempted assassin here, the gunman responsible. All of that unfolding on a Saturday night in a steamy Washington as we are trying to learn more details. For the president to be back here, that of course gives him easy access to convene meetings with his officials, and we'll stay on it as there are additional developments. Of course, the Secret Service provided some details that you've discussed at length tonight, having covered many Trump rallies when he was president and when he was a candidate in the last cycle. These are such well-attended events, huge crowds often, and covering events for the current president, President Biden, where he is out on the campaign trail. The security always includes a lot of screening, and that's why it was so notable that we were able to report that this gunman taken out and neutralized in the term of law enforcement by the Secret Service was outside that perimeter. Many questions still to be explored and investigation to be done. But President Biden will be returning here tonight, and we hope to have an update on whether he has reached the former president by phone. Lester?
All right, Kelly, thanks. We're going to try to shed a little more light on what you're talking about there. We're going to show you some new video our team has obtained. We want to warn you it's disturbing. If you look at the blurred part of your screen, that appears to show the suspect's body at the scene of the shooting. NBC News confirmed from multiple law enforcement officials the suspect was male. We also learned the suspect is dead. We have not confirmed his identity yet, but this, as you can see, is an elevated position which would be consistent with what officials have been reporting, that this shooter was operating from a superior, a higher ground, if you will, or in this case, perhaps a building of some sort. All this will, the investigation, frankly, is moving at a pretty good clip here. We are getting more information by the hour here, so we'll continue to do that. I want to bring back retired ATF Special Agent Jim Kavanaugh. Jim, what do you make of that video?
Well, it's really surprising, Lester. I mean, one of the things that shocked me first in this event is when we learned that it was a long rifle shot. We haven't seen long rifle attack on politicians really since the 60s. The last one I remember was Dr. King in '68, and of course John F. Kennedy. But they were rifle shots. But every other attack on Reagan, the two attacks on President Ford, the attack on George Wallace when he was candidate, they were all handguns. And the reason is that since the '63 assassination of John Kennedy, the Secret Service has always held the high ground. I was never on a Secret Service detail, and I was on a number when I was in ATF for all those years, where they didn't have command of all the high ground. So I'm really shocked, I'm surprised that at the top of a building or shed or barn or whatever that is, a couple hundred yards away is not already have been commanded by the Secret Service and the police working with them. It's very surprising to me. My question that I want to find out is, what was the garb of the killer, or what was he wearing? He killed a man at the rally, and he tried to kill President Trump. What was he wearing? Was he wearing a tactical outfit that maybe some of the law enforcement members mistook that he was supposed to be there, that he looked
Jim,
like an agent?
When we played the tape, I have noticed, so you hear kind of a rapid gunfire that sounds in the background, and then there's a pause, and then we hear another shot and people scream. I presume that other shot is when they took down the shooter. I'm making a presumption here. But it too sounded in the background. Did you pick up on that as well?
Yes, I think you're right. It's the distance. It's the distance from the microphones. The CAT team, you'll see that the two agents that are walking around on the dais there in the tactical garb, they're part of the Secret Service CAT team, C-A-T, Counterattack on Terrorist team. And they'll have long rifles, and they'll have members, long rifle teams on top of buildings. I think you showed pictures of them earlier just on some feed. And they'll have a scope, a bipod, binoculars, telescope. They're two-man teams, and they're watching, and they can take the long shot. And that was likely their response when they picked up a shooter. That's their training all the time. And, they're on the roof of the White House, and they're on all the high ground whenever a protectee is moving. And I think Evie mentioned it earlier, that sometimes if they don't have enough members of the team, especially in campaign years when there's a lot of candidates and so forth, they'll use a state police SWAT, a major city SWAT team, local SWAT team to get up there and do that. So I'm just really surprised that there was a building that someone could get on within rifle range of a protectee.
That's one of the many areas that will certainly come to light, I guess, in the coming hours here. I want to go back to our senior White House correspondent, Kelly O'Donnell. Kelly, we've been talking about President Biden's statement earlier. You've got an update on that.
In just the few moments that we have not been talking, Lester, we've now been advised that President Biden did reach former President Trump by phone. They have now had a conversation. President Biden earlier in the evening had said he had attempted to reach him, likely during the time that the former president was undergoing whatever medical evaluation may be taking place. We now know from the White House they have spoken. And he has also spoken with the governor of Pennsylvania and an official from Butler County, which is the location where this incident took place. So the president working the phones to make contact with his predecessor, who is also his current rival, and to make that human connection while also reaching out to the local and state officials who are directly affected by this. We expect within a few minutes President Biden will be departing from his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, to begin making the trip back here to Washington. He had said he wanted to make that connection. He has now done so, and tomorrow we are told that he will also have, once back here at the White House, an updated briefing on all of the investigative pieces that between now and tomorrow, perhaps there'll be some of those blanks filled in as the president will want to talk to his top officials who are working to try to identify more details about what happened, who was involved, what motivations or warnings, if any, might have been detected in advance, and what the next steps will be. So the president on the move tonight, the former president, and he's speaking, and more briefings to come. That's the latest we have from here, Lester.
All right, Kelly, thanks very much. David McCormick is the Republican nominee for a Senate seat in Pennsylvania. He was at the rally in the front row there. Sir, can you tell us how close you were to the president?
Yeah. Good evening, Lester. You know, I don't know, probably 20, 30 feet maybe. I was right to the right of President Trump in the first row there, and he came out and announced me and said, "Hey, why don't you come up on the stage?" And I started to get up and go on the stage, and then he said, "No, I'll have you come up later." And then within a minute or two, the shooting started. And, you know, there were, I don't know, 6 or 7 shots. And it was pretty clear right away it was a gun, and people dropped. And obviously the president went down, and the Secret Service was on top of him. And then he eventually stood up, and the Secret Service sort of had a phalanx around him. And you saw that you could see blood on him, and you saw the fists come out in both defiance and I think reassurance and strength. And at about the same time, I recognized that somebody behind me had been wounded in the bleachers behind me, and sadly, it looked like pretty severely wounded. And the people in the bleachers next to him were trying to stop the bleeding, but there was blood everywhere. And I'm not sure if that was the person who was in intensive care, the person who died, but it was clear that even though President Trump had, I guess, been nicked, that others were very, very seriously wounded. So
and it's not lost on you.
It was a very frightening moment.
Not lost on you that had you accepted that invitation to go on stage, you too might have been on the line of fire. Yeah, no, it absolutely was, and it was obvious that there was an assassination attempt on the former president, and you know, a really scary moment. It was just like it was 15,000 people there, and this had only been my second Trump rally. But it was, you know, USA Today and lots of energy and lots of positive noise, and then all of a sudden just shattered with these rifle shots, and it was just sort of people were in disbelief. It was very chaotic and very confusing for quite some time. What were you hearing during all this? Our microphones were able to pick up a lot of it, but I'm curious from someone on the ground there as this is all happening. You heard the shots. Did the former president say anything at all? Not that I heard. You know, it was all moving in such a fast pace, and you know, there was a young boy next to me, and his grandfather was a local sheriff, so the sheriff ran off to sort of deal with what was going on, and he was very frightened. So, you know, people were processing it. I didn't hear anything the president said. What became clear is that somebody was really hurt.
so people were calling for medics and, getting emergency care in, and so it quickly went from the shooting to dealing with what had happened, but also with the uncertainty whether the shooting was done. And at the time I thought it was possible there were two shooters, not just one, because it felt like the sounds were coming from multiple directions. And so, in these moments like this, I've been an Army guy earlier in my life, and it's very hard to know exactly what's going on. So you have to kind of go slow so you don't misunderstand the situation. And that's what I tried to do, was just to process and keep my head down and try to help deal with some of the challenges that resulted in some of the injuries that resulted.
Mr. McCormick, are you attending the RNC, the Republican National Convention, this coming week?
I am, yes.
Do you do that with some deal of trepidation after what you've experienced and what you saw?
Well, I'm still processing, what I saw, but as a public, I'm hoping to be a public official here as a candidate. One of the things you don't want your family to have to worry about is your safety. It's hard enough to be in political life. It's so nasty and difficult, but then to think that your life may be at risk is something that I haven't thought much about, but my family's certainly thinking about tonight, and I think probably all families of people that are in the public eye are saying, boy, this is a lot to ask. So I think it's a moment that I hope we all step back. Political violence has no place in our country. It's not a party thing. It's absolutely un-American, and hopefully a night like tonight will give us all pause and help dial down the temperature a little bit.
Yeah, I think that probably is a bipartisan thought tonight. We've been hearing in reaction to all this. I think there is universal shock and disgust that this sort of thing would happen. Thank you, Mr. McCormick, for talking to us. We really appreciate it. Our investigative correspondent, Tom Winter, is back with us. Tom, you have some new details on how the shooting took place. What can you tell us?
That's right. You were showing a video a moment ago, and maybe we can take a couple of seconds about how it was and pull it up. But we'll stay on this video for now. You see Trump looking over to his right. In this video right here that we're looking at, of this kind of tan building with the white roof, what's blurred out there is what is believed to be the body of the alleged shooter. To answer a question our colleague Jim Kavanaugh was asking before, it appears to me, looking at this video without the blur, that he is wearing some sort of a camouflage type pant. It's not clear to me whether they're wearing any sort of a tactical gear or not. In a separate video we're examining that we believe to be accurate, it appears that the Secret Service counter sniper team, so they're looking for people that might shoot at former President Trump or whoever they're protecting on that day, and they would be in a position to shoot at that person or at least spot them. It appears that they noticed this individual or at least are in the kind of looking in the general area, and it appears that they fire back in less than a second or so after the initial shot is fired. It's not clear, frankly, who fires first. So that's a little bit of detail. And according to our colleagues at NBCnews.com, and we're looking at the map now, they just put this together. It's you're looking at the location of where it appears the body was found and approximately where the stage is where the former president spoke today. And as they've done the math, there are approximately 148 yards between those two locations. So you can kind of get a sense of how all this went down, and grateful to our colleagues for bringing this up so quickly. So that's what we know as far as the location of this and the geography. As we get a better sense of what's going on. Separately, we understand now, and just got word from the FBI that Christopher Wray, who is the FBI director, has conducted a briefing right now of the National Security Council of the United States. He's briefed President Biden and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan as well. So again, FBI Director Christopher Wray, now that the FBI has taken over this investigation, they're the lead agency, has briefed the President, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, and the NSC on the status of the investigation as best as the FBI knows it at this point. So All of this is happening as we've been speaking here and looking at these videos and examining what has happened, but obviously a clear picture. We are told by the Secret Service that that rooftop, approximately 148 yards away, was outside of their security perimeter. So anybody going to this event, the people you see in the rally, in the foreground of this camera shot, in the background sitting behind Trump, those individuals would have been screened and gone through magnetometers and made sure that there was nothing on their person, certainly no weapons on their person. That would have occurred. This shooting appears to have been outside of that location, and the question is going to be now is, did that individual have line of sight? Should the perimeter have been pushed back further? And what exactly happened leading up to this? So obviously continued questions. There are calls for Congress for briefings from the Secret Service. That'll take place in the coming days. The questions are being asked right now, and we'll see where all this goes as far as the security plan. And as I alluded to you earlier, as we all know, Trump has to make his vice president pick, or is expected to in the coming couple of days. That only ramps up how busy the Secret Service is, because that individual needs to get protection as well. And once Trump is the nominee, he would normally get the full protection on top of what he gets as a former president. Well, obviously now we can assume that from here on out, Trump will have protection in his rallies, and the way that they're secured we have to assume will change here almost immediately, Lester.
All right, Tom, thanks. That map was very helpful to offer us a little perspective and kind of begin to piece together in our minds how this shooting took place. Let me bring in on the telephone Melody and Brent Hook. They were at this evening's rally and witnessed the shootings. Melanie or Brent, can you tell us what you saw and heard?
Yeah, we were sitting there, and all of a sudden we just heard, of course, what sounded like gunshots, and just total chaos then happened. I kind of looked to my right, and I saw the individual who got shot in the bleachers. I saw his hat come off. And then we just started grabbing everybody around us and just got down in the bleachers and just kind of hovered over everybody, trying to protect everybody around us. And it was right beside us.
Yeah, there was as we see in the video, there was a lot going on. The tactical teams were moving, the team moving around the former president. At that point, did you know what to do, how to protect yourself?
Well, yes and no. We just, everything's happening so quick, and you're not sure how many shooters there are or where they're at or anything. So you just kind of just like I said earlier, I've just used my mother's instinct and just grabbed the little girl behind me and just put her down in the bleachers and covered over top of her. And the rest of our family kind of gathered all around everybody else. And yeah, you don't ever plan for anything like that. So you just kind of have to just go with what you feel at the moment, I guess. I don't know. It was definitely terrifying.
So you were in the bleachers, really behind where the former president was?
We were off to his, if he was facing forward, we were off to the right. We were in the same set of bleachers where the guy was shot at.
Oh, my goodness.
We were just a few feet from him.
Is this somebody you had met or encountered?
I think we had talked to him in line coming in, but we didn't know who he was personally, no.
We know this is, we don't have to get deep into it. We know this is a tough campaign right now. But did you ever imagine you would face this sort of thing at a rally?
Absolutely not, no. We are 100% Trump supporters. This was our first rally we ever attended. We were not in the least bit worried about anything like that. So we just pray that he's okay, and we pray for the families who, suffered everything. We're just not, my husband especially, he can kind of say his little point, but we just don't know how this happened. There were so much presence there, police presence and snipers, and I don't know how that guy possibly was able to do this.
Yeah, your husband, Brent?
Yeah. Yes, he's here.
Yeah, Brent, you did go through magnetometers, the metal detectors and all that, so did you feel safe going into this arena?
Oh, yeah. I felt safe going into it. They go through it, and they double and triple check people, from what I saw. But like I heard earlier, that it was outside the perimeters or something like that, I guess, where this guy was at. And somebody told me 100 40-some yards or something like that. I think it was a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it was a good
So
200 to 300 yards.
you're familiar, you had seen the building that the shooting may have taken place?
Yeah, the sniper. Yeah, I seen both sets of snipers up on the two buildings right behind where Trump would have been. And I watched them guys look over at that building quite a bit. They looked over there with the binoculars quite a bit, and I didn't know what was going on. And that's exactly where the shots come from, was there at that building.
Well, look, I'm glad you folks are well. I'm sorry you had to see what you saw, but thank you for sharing your story and your account with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, NBC's Jesse Kirsch is outside the former president's home in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Jesse, you have Trump supporters showing up near his home throughout the evening, expressing their support.
That's right, Lester, and we still have a crowd out here right now. We're going to cut to another camera angle and show you just on the other side of my camera lens. You can see there are some people gathering. We've had people with Trump flags, Trump campaign flags, American flags, people driving by honking horns. For hours now, there have been people out here expressing their support for the former president. I do want to show you the presence behind us here at Mar-a-Lago, the former president's home. I'm going to step off to the side. Our photographer is going to push in. You can see red and blue lights, what appear to be on a police vehicle on the property. Our team has seen what appears to be at least 2 police vehicles stationed on that property tonight. But what I can tell you is from our producer, Juliet, who has been driving around the area, has been in the area before, there does not appear at this point to be any obvious demonstrable up-ramp of the physical, visible security presence here. Of course, that's only speaking to what we can visibly see out here right now, so that's not saying anything about what might be going on inside the fence line of the property at this point. But from our perspective out here, there does not appear to be an obvious ramp up of the physical security presence. We should note this is not just the home of the former president. This is where his youngest child, Barron Trump, lives, as well as his wife, Melania Trump. We know that the former First Lady was, before all this unfolded, expected to be at the RNC in Milwaukee this week. We do not at this point have any guidance on their whereabouts, either the former First Lady or Barron Trump at this point. So we don't know if they are at this property. I can tell you that since we've been here and our team has been out here for hours at this point, we have not seen any kind of up-ramp, again, of a security presence, no motorcade coming or going that would suggest any movements of the former First family on this property in this area at Palm Beach tonight. Lester.
All right, Jesse Kirsch, thank you very much. We want to go to Garrett Hake right now. He covers former President Trump. And Garrett, this is all happening in the middle of a presidential election that is lost on no one.
Yeah, Lester, I mean, the contours of where we are right now are fascinating. We've had over the last several weeks since the presidential debate a situation in which Donald Trump, who likes the spotlight of campaigning more than any other politician I've ever covered, has almost entirely stayed out of it. All of the headlines over the last 2 weeks have been about Joe Biden and would he remain as the Democratic nominee. We were starting to talk about Donald Trump again in the context of this rally today and the opening of his convention on Monday, because he was going to have to name his vice presidential nominee, something that would pull that spotlight back to him, and then have the chance to introduce himself again to the country at a convention. One of the very few events that a candidate can ever fully control on their own during the heat of a presidential election. Instead, we find ourselves tonight, Saturday night, probably bleeding well into Sunday morning, in the exact opposite situation, an assassination attempt, something no candidate could ever possibly control, that's liable to completely upend the contours of this election. We know that the president and the former president have spoken tonight in the aftermath of this, and we know that the RNC, according to the organizers and the former president statement that appears in his name, seems to indicate at least, will go forward on Monday in some capacity. But what the speeches will be about, what the kind of contours of this campaign will be, how voters will react to seeing a nominee for a major party escorted off stage by Secret Service, covered in his own blood. I mean, this is just not something that modern voters have had to grapple with. When I'm talking to people tonight, not just my sources, but sort of the normal people in my life consuming this all, there is so much shock and anger and sadness that we are in this place as a country, and we're in this place in July, how this all changes over the next couple of months, when especially we now know the House of Representatives, at least, if not the Senate as well, will be investigating this shooting. We'll be talking about it for weeks, if not months. So the motivations behind the shooter, when we find out what they are. I mean, there's just such a butterfly effect moment to have happen in what's normally the doldrums of summer pre-convention in a presidential election that now could shape much of the next several months of this race.
Yeah, you say that, and I had to think for a second. You're right, we are in July, and this is normally a period where we get a little bit of a breath before heading into the meat of the campaign, but not to be. Thank you, Garrett. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard has been covering the Trump campaign. He joins us now from the RNC at the Convention Center in Milwaukee. I assume that a lot of the delegates have already arrived and that word has circulated. What kind of reaction are you hearing there?
Right. Thousands of delegates are already here in Milwaukee. There have already been several committees that are a part of this convention that have already been meeting here this weekend in the lead up to Monday's formal festivities beginning. Of course, it's Monday night when the first primetime speakers will begin. Of course, Donald Trump's family is expected to be here as well. Melania Trump, Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric. Donald Trump himself, the presumptive Republican nominee, is set to take the stage here this upcoming Thursday night in prime time. To our understanding, the plans continue as they were initially said. Just a few hours before this apparent assassination took place, the speakers for this convention were announced. For the RNC here, there are delegates that are going to be coming here and going to be filling up this arena. We've already been watching the Secret Service here on site beginning their initial sweeps here to ensure the security of this perimeter here. There is a soft perimeter and there's a hard perimeter around the greater convention site here in downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This has been a convention now years in the making here for this moment. It was 8 years ago, the last time that there was a formal Republican convention of this sorts. Of course, the 2000 convention happening at the heart of the pandemic. There was no crowd. There were no mass delegations here. And so for this event here, it is going to be moving on as forward. I talked to two different delegates just a short time ago, one telling me that they believe this only increases the energy level here and the intensity and the commitment to support the likes of Donald Trump, the former president, the presumptive Republican nominee, who's expected on Monday to be formally nominated inside of this arena with the several thousand delegates on hand. Lester.
All right, thank you. So let's go to national security analyst Frank Figliuzzi. And Frank, the FBI has taken over the investigation. What does that mean in a practical sense?
Yeah, Lester, this is actually mandated by regulation. It's been written long ago, and the history of it is fascinating because it anticipates the unlikely event that maybe the Secret Service would cover up an incident or even be involved in it, God forbid. So we expected the FBI to come in and take this over. What it means is the full panoply of the FBI will be involved, from high-tech crime scene analysis, but more immediately, Lester, all of the social media and computer devices of this shooter, all the interviews of his coworkers, family, neighbors, all of that, his entire life history will be reconstructed rather rapidly. And the goal here will be to see, number one, was anyone else involved? Is this part of a larger conspiracy? Was there anything that could have been done to head this off or intervene? They'll be looking at his weapon, where it came from. Was it purchased legally or not? Was he trained as a sniper ever in any profession that he may have held? And of course, what was his motive? And I caution people, don't draw conclusions. We don't know where this shooter really was coming from mentally, and that's where the FBI will be going. One of the early things they need to rule out is terrorism. They need to rule out that this wasn't a part of an international terrorism plot. So lots of things on the FBI's plate in the upcoming days and weeks.
This is, Merrick Garland has brought his team together. Is this truly a national security issue?
It clearly is. I mean, the world is watching here. They know we're all divided and polarized, and that we do tend to lean toward violence as a possible solution. This only makes things worse, not only internationally, but domestically. You've reported the RNC is starting on Monday. This is our iconic Democratic process. The parties hold conventions. They pick their nominees. The question, can we do that securely and safely? And you will see changes come Monday in the planning around the RNC. So, for example, in the state of Wisconsin, you're not supposed to preclude anyone from carrying a weapon, even in a soft security zone, which is in place for the free speech and designated protest areas of the convention. I think those are going to get moved. There's also a parade route around the building for people who want to exercise free speech and assembly. That may be rethought. We're going to have to do things differently moving forward. And of course, the investigation of what went wrong here, why, if as reported is true, why was this building the shooter was on outside the perimeter when it clearly was within a sniper's range? We've got to figure that out too.
Are you fearful, or does law enforcement look at the possibility that something like this could inspire others who may have harbored similar thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. The copycat thing here, look, sadly, we've seen it over the last couple of years, haven't we, with people kind of taking on FBI buildings, and it doesn't end well for them, like Cincinnati, Ohio, or a man who tried to swing a weapon at FBI agents in Provo, Utah, who were arresting him. This kind of thing begets more violence and revenge. So if you're going to have protest areas in Milwaukee with presumably people who are anti-Trump, can you imagine people who think in their head the answer is to seek revenge for today's event, maybe against those who are protesting against Trump? This presents quite the challenge for next week.
And as this investigation unfolds, you reminded us not to glom on to what we think may be a motive in this case. But if there are connections, outlets, for example, for outside the United States, that would turn this into a much different animal.
It sure would. And look, the FBI Director Chris Wray, for example, has been telling Congress repeatedly now that there is strong indication of a potential for an international terror attack here. He used the language that it could look like the concert hall attack in Moscow recently by ISIS-K. Recently, the FBI arrested 8 men who migrated over the southern border from Tajikistan who are affiliated with ISIS-K. So, you know, that is an ongoing concern, and the FBI is going to work quickly to try and put that angle to rest.
And the digital trail, we've seen that emerge in similar things before. Will that be the tell-all, essentially?
Today, people just vent all of their motives and frustrations online, and my guess is this will be the case here. We'll know pretty quickly, even through family interviews as well as social media, where this individual was coming from in terms of mindset.
All right, we continue to get video from the aftermath. You see people who were wounded, perhaps, or somehow otherwise injured there being treated in the confusion, the aftermath of all this. There's still photos, including ones like this, that have certainly gone viral among many of Donald Trump's supporters after he has survived what is an apparent assassination attempt in Pennsylvania today at a rally. This is the shot, the iconic shot now of the former president being whisked away to the safety of his vehicle. We're coming up at the top of the hour. We're going to take a very brief pause for some of our stations to start their local coverage. For others, Hallie Jackson will pick up the coverage in just a moment.
For our viewers just joining us, we are on the air with breaking news on this NBC News special report. A shooting at Donald Trump's Pennsylvania campaign rally. The former president has been hurt in an apparent assassination attempt. The Secret Service says the president is safe and that the shooter is dead. Tonight, Donald Trump is posting on Truth Social, his platform online, that he was hit with a bullet that he says pierced the upper part of his right ear. He said he felt it ripping through his skin. We have a lot to get to, but I want to pause here. We're going to roll the video of what happened just after 6 p.m. here on the East Coast while Mr. Trump was speaking. I want you to listen closely also to the sound of the shots and what you hear in the moments right after that until Mr. Trump is rushed into his motorcade. Watch.
A little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Move to the spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the spare. Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready. You ready? Down. Down. Are we good? Shooter's down. Shooter's down. Are we good to move? Shooter's down. We're good to move. We're clear. Let's move. Let's move. We're clear. Let me get my shoes. Got you, sir. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold that in your head. It's bloody. So we got to move to the bus. Move to the bus. Let me get my shoes. Okay. My shoes down. Get the shoe. Watch out.
You see that fist in the air from former President Trump as he is taken into his motorcade and then taken away. This is a map, the approximate area of the stage where Mr. Trump was shot and the location of the suspected gunman's body. Here's what we know right now, that suspected shooter fired a weapon from a roof outside the perimeter of the rally. So he was outside the Secret Service security area. The alleged gunman is dead. Also, a spectator who was attending the rally has been killed. 2 other spectators were badly hurt. President Biden has spoken with Mr. Trump. He is returning right now to the White House from Delaware, where earlier this evening, the president addressed the nation.
But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully and without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody.
Former President Trump has put out a statement extending his condolences to the loved ones of the rally-goer who was killed and to the others who were hurt. He also thanked law enforcement and first responders for their quick action and says he looks forward to the Republican convention in Milwaukee that is set to begin on Monday. I want to bring in now NBC's Dasha Burns, who was at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. She was there when the shots were fired. Dasha, bring us up to speed as to where things stand now, what we know about the whereabouts of the former president, and what happens from here.
Hallie, as reporters in this day and age, you and I both know we cover shootings. It is a modern day reality. It is very rare, though, and certainly has never happened to me, that we, instead of going to the scene in the aftermath, we are actually there on site and witnessing all of this. We were there, our team, in the moments when the shots rang out. I can walk you through just briefly to.
I do not condone anyone who would call for any sort of political violence, but I do believe that there is a place to speak truth and to hold those accountable who are causing harm on Americans. And that is not a violent thing. I think Republicans will show up at the ballot box, and that will be our response to today.
My full unedited conversation with Congresswoman Boebert about what happened today, as well as the short written statements released by other political leaders in Colorado, are all on 9news.com and the 9 News app. I'm going to return with more information on the apparent assassination attempt on Donald Trump in just a moment.
In other headlines today in Colorado, scorching temperatures across the state today and very challenging conditions for firefighters. People in 2 counties lost homes today in 2 different fires. 5 people were injured in a house fire in Jefferson County, including a child and first responders. And a brush fire in Arapahoe County destroyed several buildings that also included homes. Tonight, in rural Arapahoe County, southeast of Byers, the Quail Hollow fire burned at least 1,100 acres today.
Some people were evacuated, at least 8 buildings burned. 9 News reporter Ria Jha is there with the latest.
It's devastating how quickly people lost their homes, but it's also amazing how quickly this community of just 1,600 people came together to bring resources to this warehouse for their firefighters.
In the distance, we could hear sirens, and I was waiting for them just to fall off, but they kept getting closer. And when they came in front of us is when we really started looking, and we saw all of the smoke billowing and some flames from behind the neighbor's house.
It's the second time in 2 weeks Diana Hand thought her house would be next.
I love it here, but the fire danger is really bad this year. We've never had this many fires in this area before.
Diana loves the open space she gets living in Byers, but that open space can be a risk too.
If an ember hits the ground and catches that grass on fire, it will just go. I mean, if you look around, it's just dry.
Which is exactly why Diana's family started packing up when they saw the smoke near their neighbor's house on Saturday.
This went quick. This took maybe 5 minutes from it to get to the trees to get way up there. It was fast.
The fire spread to the size of a football field. Thankfully, Diana's house was spared, but 4 other homes and 3 outbuildings were destroyed.
I am shaking. I feel sick to my stomach, not just for us, but for the people that lost their property, for my neighbors especially. The one good thing to see, again, is the community coming together.
We got out there, we heard there were homes and livestock in danger.
Dan Froman was among several community members who went out to the scene to help out. He also owns this warehouse in Byers.
We're a local HVAC and electrical contractor out here on the corridor.
But today
we're whatever we need to be to help the community.
His warehouse turned into a refuge and recovery for firefighters.
One of our friends got on Facebook and just said, hey, you know, look, if you guys want to drop stuff off and volunteer, you know, we'll open up the place here at Wide Open for everyone that needs it. And it was just car after car after car.
While the community is spread out, in times like this, they know how to unite.
It's people helping people, and it's a beautiful thing.
Tonight, firefighters tell us the fire is fully contained and all evacuation orders have been lifted. Reporting in Byers, Ria Cha, 9 News.
In Boulder County, firefighters now have the dinosaur fire completely contained. The air quality advisory in the area has been lifted. That fire started burning yesterday up near NCAR. Firefighters plan to stay out there through tomorrow. Just keep an eye on it. Trails in the area are still closed. They're asking folks to avoid that area.
And we referenced that fire, Lauren, in Jefferson County, 5 people hurt, including a child. Everyone's okay, baby's already home, but this is another situation. We just saw terrible weather conditions today, something that starts at a house, spreads to nearby wildland fire. It's dangerous fire conditions.
Yeah, that's right. As we know, dry, windy weather is fire's enemy as far as continuing to keep it contained. Now, as we go through the rest of the weekend, we will continue to watch for dangerously hot weather. Today, we maxed out at 99 degrees, just short of triple digits and breaking an existing record for today, but we do still have one more chance for tomorrow. As we move across the Front Range and Eastern Plains, most of us saw highs in the upper 90s to triple digits. We made it to 106 down in Lamar. Out west, we saw 103 in Grand Junction. Even the high country was in the 80s and 90s. So even though we didn't officially make it into the triple digits or break any records today out at DIA, it was still extremely hot there. The difference between 1 or 2 degrees really doesn't make a difference on the skin. Now, as we go to our HD Doppler radar, we do have a couple of very spotty showers and storms along the urban corridor. You can see a small storm pushing its way through Meade, another one south near Castle Rock. So as we go through the rest of the evening, we're going to watch for more very spotty shower chances. The same goes for tomorrow afternoon, but as we move through the rest of the week, we will finally see a cool down, temperatures dropping actually below average. I'll have details on all of that for you just after the break.
Coming up, Secret Service agents sharing more about what happened at a campaign rally for former President Donald Trump today, what we're learning in these early hours about the shooter when we come back.
Trust. Trust is earned well before the sun starts to shine, with a team dedicated to find and deliver Colorado's most important stories. This is Colorado's most trusted morning news. This is 9 News Mornings.
If you're injured in an Uber or Lyft wreck, you need to find out what your coverage is, no matter who's at fault. Under Colorado law, you may have up to $1 million as a passenger or a driver. Uber or Lyft wreck, call me now. I'm attorney Frank Azar, the strong arm.
Looking to upgrade your kitchen, laundry room, or outdoor cooking area? Look no further than Mountain High Appliance. Family owned and operated for the past 31 years. I'm Brad Barnett, president of Mountain High Appliance. We have hundreds of appliances hooked up live for a true try-before-you-buy experience, plus professional delivery and installation. Our price match guarantee ensures you receive the best deal, and special financing options make your purchase affordable.
Mountain High Appliance, your favorite appliance store.
Thank you.
Stay straight for the next 200 miles.
Get into an Audi and go your own way. Find your way to exceptional offers during the Summer of Audi sales event at your local Audi dealer.
Well, are we ready for this?
What's next, Grandma?
Hayden, do you want to cut the banana?
Okay, let's do it.
Look at him. Now comes the best part, the Bluebell ice cream. Oh, that's fun. Hey, how about some chocolate? And some sprinkles.
How's this, Grandma?
That looks so yummy. You know, your mom is gonna love this. Don't forget a spoon.
Did you know vein disease can start in your 20s and worsen over time, causing pain, aching, and heaviness in your legs? Take the first step to healthy, pain-free legs by calling United Vein Centers. Bulging leg veins are not merely cosmetic. They're often a health issue that can worsen if untreated. At United Vein Centers, our minimally invasive treatments result in little to no downtime and are covered by Medicare, Medicaid, and most health insurance. Trust your legs to United Vein Centers. Call 1-800-NEW-LEGS today to schedule your free vein screening at one of our locations.
What fills your heart about Ireland? The coast? The people?
If you find any pearls, give them to me, okay?
The crack. Fill your heart with Ireland. Discover more at Ireland.com.
The apparent assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania today raises obvious questions about how somebody was able to get within firing range of the president.
The Secret Service says the shooter was outside the secured perimeter. They say the shooter fired from an elevated position outside the rally venue and came through security screenings. Several eyewitnesses have told reporters on scene they saw the man on the roof with a rifle and tried unsuccessfully to get the attention of officers. The Secret Service says the suspect was killed by one of their agents. Investigators recovered an AR-style rifle. This is, again, a developing story. We will continue to keep you updated once we learn more.
Well, this afternoon, we didn't quite reach our expected highs in the triple digits, which means we didn't break any records, but it still felt very hot with temperatures climbing all the way to 99 degrees officially at DIA. We're still pretty warm as we go into the evening, 84 degrees right now at 9:13. We do have winds coming in from the east at around 7 miles per hour. Now, along with that heat, we do still have one more day under heat advisories for our Sunday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And again, this is going to be most of the Front Range and Eastern Plains, where we are expecting those highs to climb into the triple digits tomorrow afternoon. And like we've been saying for the last several days, you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself, your neighbors, your pets. Stay hydrated, seek shade and shelter whenever needed. Don't do too many strenuous activities during those peak hours, and bring your pets inside. All of those things that we know we should be doing when it's very hot outside. Now, in addition to the heat advisories, we do have air quality alerts in effect across the I-25 corridor from Fort Collins down through Colorado Springs. And this is going to be for higher levels of ozone. Anyone with respiratory sensitivities or asthma, anything like that, you might need to limit your time outside again tomorrow. Now, as we take a look at our HD Doppler radar, we've been monitoring a little system over the Four Corners region, and that's been bringing some very brief but scattered showers and storms, mostly across the western slope and high country this afternoon, now making their way into portions of the Front Range. So south of Fort Collins, we can see a little storm over Loveland, one over Berthoud, and then one over Platteville. The rest of us staying pretty dry until we get further south, where we could see a light rain shower between Aspen and Crested Butte. We're also looking for a stronger storm between Pueblo and Colorado City. This storm did have a severe thunderstorm warning attached to it that was allowed to expire. So a couple of the storms here and there could be a bit stronger, but overall, we're going to stay mostly dry tonight. And if you do have a shower or storm overhead, it shouldn't last very long or be very widespread. As we go into the day tomorrow, another sunny start to our day, another very very hot afternoon and another day with these very scattered but spotty showers and storms. As we start the early afternoon hours, we are going to watch for those showers across the western slope and high country first, and then pushing into the Front Range as we go into the later afternoon hours. And then by Sunday evening, some very isolated storms across the plains before all of that moves out late Sunday night. So as we zoom into our Front Range tomorrow by around noon to 1 o'clock is where we're looking for tomorrow's round of very spotty showers, maybe one over Conifer. And then as we go into the afternoon hours, we're just going to continue to watch for very spotty, isolated, brief showers, maybe a pop-up storm here or there. And again, if you do get one of those pop-up storms overhead, with the heat being as hot as it is, we could maybe see some gustier winds and a quick downpour. But overall, we're going to expect a mostly dry, very hot day ahead for our Sunday. In the meantime, tonight we stay pretty warm even overnight with our lows nearly at 70 degrees across the Front Range and Eastern Plains, lows in the 50s and 60s in the high country. Making those plans for tomorrow, again, it's going to be very hot, dangerously hot even in some cases. So we're going to expect another afternoon in the triple digits across most of the Front Range and Eastern Plains, 70s, 80s, 90s in the high country, more triple digits across the western slope. As we zoom into our Front Range forecast highs for tomorrow, again, triple digits across the urban corridor as well as the northern plains. We're looking for those 90s as you make your way westward, the foothills and the high country seeing those 70s and 80s. So a hot day all around. But good news is relief is in the future. Another triple digit day expected for our Sunday. Monday, we cool down just a tad bit, relatively speaking, into the upper 90s. But then take a look, Tuesday through the middle of the week, we're in the 80s here. We will be watching for several chances for those afternoon and evening storms.
Coming up next in sports, a major blow to the Denver Nuggets organization. We have an update on the injury to their first-round draft pick. Plus, we talk to the Gatorade National Player of the Year ahead of the Paris Olympics.
The future of business banking technology. First Bank presents Sarah.
It's just Sarah.
Available in black suit, blue suit, and casual Fridays.
Yay, Fridays.
Features include human interaction, empathy, and actually caring about your business.
The technology you need, the humans you want.
Oh, hi.
First Bank. Business banking for good.
Friedhoff's is Colorado's largest patio furniture store. Create your own outdoor oasis with thousands of durable, comfortable, and stylish pieces to choose from. Find something to fit your space and your taste. Friedhoff's in Westminster, just east of Wadsworth and 88.
Hello, I'm Joe Whitcomb, founder of the Veterans Advocacy Law Group. I'm a former Army Ranger and an attorney, and the first VA benefits claim I ever handled was my own. If you are a military veteran, hire the law firm founded by veterans for veterans to help you with your VA benefits claim. If the VA denies your claim, call 844-838-7787. That's 844-VETS-RE-US, or visit theveteransattorneys.com for help.
It would take me 20, 30 minutes to get out of bed and try and get to some sense of normalcy. I had been living with these conditions for roughly 25 years.
Not only are adjustments, but with the spinal decompression with the DRX 9000, not only do they never have to go through the type of suffering that they had when they first came in, but they can resume their normal life. It's a lifesaver. It's like magic.
My back is finally healed.
I'm Dr. Glenn Pinto, and at Pinto Chiropractic, we've got your back.
King Soopers, leading the charge for optimum wellness.
Kindness is wellness. Science says it can enhance the health of our heart and our immune systems. It reduces stress and increases longevity. Kindness is wellness. Beautiful and contagious.
Kind bars are the wholesome and tasty snack you can always stock up on at the grocery store. Made with nutrient-dense ingredients like nuts, whole grains, and fruit, Kind bars make nutrition on the go easy and delicious. King Soopers, the home of optimum wellness.
A year removed from the NBA championship, and the Nuggets are looking for the pieces to get back there. Unfortunately, their star rookie and 22nd pick in the NBA draft, Deron Holmes, will miss his entire rookie season. Good evening, I'm Ashley Moore. Now, this happened last night during the team's first Summer League game. Watch down in the paint. Holmes is playing defense, but then lands awkwardly on that right foot. Now, at the time, we didn't know how serious the injury was. But this morning, it was announced that the first-round draft pick suffered a season season-ending torn right Achilles tendon. Holmes was expected to be another big to support Nikola Jokic. Last night, he dropped 11 points and 7 rebounds before the injury. With U.S. women's national team taking on Mexico in a friendly ahead of Paris, and we'd be scoreless up until the 63rd minute. The U.S. in possession when Trinity Rodman gets it to Mallory Swanson, who hesitates on the shot before sending it to Sophia Smith. She boots it, and one finally hits the back of the net for the breakthrough goal the U.S. needed. That's the Colorado native's 4th goal in her 4th game in international play, her 20th total. And USA wins despite struggling offensively. Well, 6-match home game win streak for the Rapids, taking on the New York Red Bulls. And near the 13th minute, Rafael Navarro, in striking range, makes the move between 2 defenders and is far right. This one will remain scoreless until the first half, when it would be Red Bulls ball. Lewis Morgan gets the pass and boots it in, but the Rapids have tied it up in the second half. Update at 10. Well, Philip Lindsay gave back to his hometown community today. The Denver South star turned CU buff, who then played for the Broncos, returned to his old stomping grounds at All City Stadium to host a youth football camp.
I'm not gonna say weird because it's in my blood. I mean, my family for years, from my cousins and it's starting from my father and my uncle to my cousins to us. We just kind of have been grown up here in the DPS. So this is something that we kind of always was around, known about, and just coming back here just feels like home.
Well, the Paris Summer Olympics are just 13 days away, and the U.S. track team is filled with Colorado athletes. But one we'll be watching closely is former Niwot High School legend Elise Cranny. So to prepare, I took a trip over to Niwot to talk to the current legend and Gatorade National Player of the Year, Addison Ritzenheim, on how hard long-distance running is, especially against the world's best. The big Elise Cranny race came down to the last 100 meters. Out of a 5,000-meter race, when you're coming around to the final 100 meter and somebody's right here on your hip, like as a runner, what do you have to do? What willpower do you have to go into to finish that race with someone on your hip sprinting?
Yeah, honestly, it's scary to have somebody, you can feel them breathing down your neck, you can hear their footsteps coming, but honestly, you gotta turn your brain off in that moment. You gotta just trust your training, and you know, it can come down to whoever wants it more, whoever, you know, it's just, you know, whatever happens in that last 100 meters.
Watching Elise Cranny in that final 100 meters, I assume it was like watching the Super Bowl at your house, right?
Yeah. It's always on. Our house is very loud. In the final 100 meters of most races, we are cheering so loud, even though they can't hear us through the screen. But yeah, seeing Elise Cranny power down that final 100 meters, it was so inspirational. We were all clapping, we were all cheering. We knew she gave it her all, and that's so inspiring.
Well, speaking of Elise Cranny, make sure you tune in to Overtime tomorrow night as we get up and close personal with the Olympians' family ahead of the Paris Games. That's all this Sunday at 10:35. But let's end here. Ritzenheim, the Niwot Junior and Gatorade National Player of the Year, was a nominee at the 2024 ESPYs Thursday for overall high school player of the year. That's her in the pink dress. Now, although she didn't win, she got to share the stage with the likes of Paige Beckers and Candace Parker, and she still has 2 more years in high school to win the award. How cool is that?
And she looks good in the dress.
Right, looks great in the dress. That's what running does for you, you know.
Yes.
I have no thoughts on that at all. Congrats to her. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to say goodbye to the old ways of learning? Introducing Nightingale College, where the future of nursing education is now. Experience innovative VR simulations paired with expert on-ground field instruction. Our 100% online classes allow you to learn at your own pace. Study from the comfort of your own home or wherever life takes you. Embark on your journey to become a Nightingale nurse today. Learn more at nightingale.edu. Nightingale College, innovative learning on your time.
You may come from a plug family, and I come from a no plug family, but one day our great families will come together in marriage.
There's an electrified vehicle for everyone to fall in love with. Get offers on select models at the Lexus Golden Opportunity Sales Event.
Get special offers on select Lexus RZ models.
lot of attorneys say they'll fight for you, but will they file a case against the insurance company if they get a lowball offer? We're #1 in Colorado for filing cases against insurance companies. Find out how much your case is worth. You'll be surprised. I'm attorney Frank Azar with Strong Arm.
The Array of Trees sale. 5-year-old spring snow fruitless crabapple trees now on $199.99. Come see.
I-25 to exit 235. Then 5 miles west to the tree farm.
Join us in celebrating the red, white, and beautiful at the Scandinavian Designs 4th of July sale. Save up to 60% on select Nordic-inspired furniture and decor with new markdowns on sofas, accent chairs, and much more. Scandinavian Designs Furniture. We make it simple. You make it home. Shop our Denver, Westminster, or Highlands Ranch locations. Or shop online at ScandinavianDesigns.com.
Okay, 500 deluxe garden gnomes. Wow.
I only meant to order 5. There's not enough money in my account for these. I'm gonna get charged.
2 things I just can't deal with: overdraft charges and garden gnomes. But your BMO Smart Advantage checking account gives you an extra day to avoid an overdraft fee.
Nice to see a bank cutting people some slack.
Well, mistakes happen, and we give you time to correct them.
So you don't like gnomes, huh? What about that one?
That one I like a lot.
BMO. We continue to follow breaking news out of Pennsylvania tonight.
Former President Donald Trump was slightly injured, and a person in his crowd was killed in what appears to have been an assassination attempt at his campaign rally. The president is already posting again on social media. He's already saying that he will be at the RNC as scheduled next month. We can take that down. That's a statement from a cabinet secretary. Apologies. Tonight, there's condemnation from across the political spectrum about that attack. We will continue to cover what happened there in Pennsylvania, what we're learning about the shooter, and about the person injured at 10 o'clock tonight on 9 News.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you then.
When severe weather threatens, you can trust 9 News. Be prepared, stay safe, and get the latest on weather impact days with your 9 News weather team.
Is it time to replace your windows? Let the experts at Pella of Denver and Northern Colorado help. For over 50 years, we provided top-notch service and beautifully designed products. Based on a 2024 survey of leading window brands among homeowners, Pella is the most preferred window brand among homeowners in Denver. Schedule your free consultation today to see it for yourself. And for a limited time, buy one, get one window 50% off and 12 months no interest, no payments. Visit us today to experience the Pella difference.
I was a typical Colorado teenager who loved to ski, hike, and fish. Then, I lost my leg. Now, I'm a typical Colorado teenager who loves to ski, hike, and fish.
The Make It Ford Summer Sales Event is on. So make it your best summer ever with Ford. Get your ideal combination of power and capability. And experience hands-free highway driving technology with Ford Blue Cruise, available on select vehicles. It's the Make It Ford Summer Sales Event, so make it yours. Make it now. Make it 0% APR financing. Make it a 0 down payment, and make it no payments for up to 90 days on select Ford vehicles. Only at your local Ford dealer.
So we spend a third of our lives sleeping. Shouldn't we try to get the best sleep possible? That's why Denver Mattress is all about that sleep life. And during the Super 7-Day sale, everything is on sale. Like the budget-friendly Summit Queen, easy on the wallet for only $299.99. Get a $300 gift when you purchase any Tempur-Pedic, or get no interest until January 2029, and free shipping. Improve your sleep life one night at a time, only at Denver Mattress. The easiest way to get the right mattress.
Life doesn't always follow the plan we set out for ourselves. I know and see firsthand how random tragedy upends the lives of very good people from all walks of life. I'm Kyle Backus. At Backus & Shanker, we represent innocent victims seriously injured after tragedy strikes. As we vigorously pursue justice for victims, we treat our clients the way we would want a law firm to treat our own families. Backus & Shanker, our passion is justice.
is I'm not your father. I'm your...
You're supposed to be protecting the building from earthquakes, not causing them.
Sorry.
Can you take a break while I finish the trashy reality show I'm too embarrassed to tell you the name of?
All right, fellas, you heard the lady. Take a break.
Oh, hang on. Okay, thank you.
What's that for?
I have to prove to the building owner that this work is finally happening, because I said I'd take care of it 6 years ago, and 3 years ago, and last year.
Hey, while I've got you, can you get the guy with the RV out of the alley? I can't get my truck in.
Happy to. Yelling at people is my favorite sport.
What's that one for?
I want to show you to my friends. Yo, dumbass! Move this piece of crap!
Hey.
Oh, great. The dumbass is my husband.
My buddy Jay loaned us his RV. Spontaneous vacation. Where do you want to go?
Jay's house to return it.
When it comes to Nature Valley, which camp are you in? 2 bars in one pack? Or 2 cravings packed into one bar?
Sweet.
And salty. Nature Valley sweet and salty bars in delicious flavors like dark chocolate, peanut, and almond.
Goldfish. Can I get the handful?
Sure.
Happy?
Go for the handful.
Summer fun means one thing. It's time to visibly say goodbye to crow's feet, fine lines, wrinkles, and under-eye bags, and say hello to smooth, beautiful, younger-looking skin with Plexiderm. Plexiderm smooths away wrinkles without foundation, without color makeup, and without expensive procedures. Best of all, you could try it for only $14.95 this summer.
This isn't the first time I've been on TV raving about this product. It's amazing. My friends, my family, they can't believe it. Nothing works like this.
I've had under-eye bags for a very long time, and it sucks. Finally, I tried something called Plexiderm. I put it on my face.
We're tracking each of these developments, and as we learn more, we'll bring it to you. Hallie?
Kelly O'Donnell live for us there from the White House. Kelly, thank you very much. I want to bring in Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Muser, who was at today's rally. He is joining us now. Congressman, thank you very much for your time tonight. I know it's late, and I know it's been a difficult day.
Yeah, well, good to be with you. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about what happened, what you saw happen, what you saw and heard there today in Butler?
Sure. It started as a typical rally. We had some pre-rally speeches, myself, Senate candidate Dave McCormick, Mike Kelly, my colleague in the House. The president arrived. We did our standard pictures and met with some people. And then he came out, and he wasn't speaking for more than 6 or 7 minutes when we heard rapid gunfire. The first couple of shots, I don't think any of us knew exactly what was going on. Yeah. But I guess it was maybe the fourth shot was when it hit the president. And when he put his hand up to his head and hit the deck, boy, everybody in the place knew what was going on. They knew we were under fire. So the Secret Service did its job. Our Pennsylvania state troopers were also highly engaged. There was a lot of security there. And then, very, very sadly, an individual that was sitting just right behind me, a few rows, was also hit, and that was a bad scene. And my understanding is that individual was a fatality, that he was killed. So it was chaotic. It was a shame, and we're lucky that the president, former President Trump, by a quarter of an inch. Avoided assassination.
Congressman, just an incredibly traumatic evening. I'm going to ask for your patience. I want to pause this conversation for just a second